Today's episode of Beer with Geeks comes from Academy Rewind, in which Palmer and I and two guests break down the 2023 Oscars. And so the episode is a little long. It runs almost 3 hours, and so I know that's a little different than our usual format, but I hope you enjoy all the same.
Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Name the dog in the animal.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in pints?
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Thought Bubble Audio.
Hi, and welcome to Academy Rewind, the fortnightly podcast where we take a look at the Oscars from years past. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is the man, the myth, the Banshee, Palmer. How are you today?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing well. Joining us on our episode of the 2023 Academy Award recap is Lisa from I Love That Movie podcast. How are you today, Lisa?
I'm good. I waved for our listeners.
You did wave for our listeners. I did notice
it's
that.
It's an impulse.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. Thank you again for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming back. And back for a second time, speaking of people who are back for a second time, is Jeff from the Current Cinema podcast. How are you today, Jeff?
I am fantastic now that I'm here. I'm even more grateful than Lisa is to be here. More grateful.
So wow, it's not a contest.
It's not a contest, but I am more grateful. I'm just saying.
Why don't I have a mute button?
Oh, it's because I'm the host, so you can't
Boo.
mute Jeff. All right, we are here to talk about the 2023 Academy Awards. We're going to talk about the ceremony, of course, the 95th Academy Awards. We're mostly going to talk about the Best Picture nominations because that is what this podcast does. Those Best Picture nominations are as follows: All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. The Best Picture winner, of course, was Everything Everywhere All at Once. But let's talk about the ceremony first before we talk about these pictures. Well, what did we think about it in general? It's been a rocky couple of years for the Oscars, and this one seemed to me pretty normal, pretty tame.
It had 100% less violence.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
It also 96-ish% was fine, except for the bit with Malala.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Not only was it like him asking the question to her was a little bit weird, but then he went back to it, which is what made it worse.
I think that it didn't know it was a joke thing at first either. So like I was expecting real questions for Malala, and then it turned into a joke. So like if she was the third person down the line, I would get the bit a little bit more, but she's just kind of the wrong person to call out for.
Yeah,
that
I
kind of
feel
thing.
like if you're going to do something like that with someone who's not in the industry, like, yeah, she had movies, she had a documentary made about her that won awards, but she's not in the industry. She's not used to riffing. She's like, that's not her thing. Like, so stuff like that should have been cleared beforehand. Like, hey, we want to do this with you. This is going to be what it is. Yes or no, or just not even do it. Like, you have plenty of other people in the industry there.
I mean, from what I remember, the visual effects winners were not done talking. So you could have just let them finish and scrap the bit. That's my opinion.
I mean, the rest of the bit was fine. It was that one part. And
that's fair. That's fair. The Jessica Chastain part
Cocaine
was
Bear
funny.
came out for some reason again. Like,
Right.
Cocaine Bear was great when he came out with Elizabeth Banks. But then coming out again, it was like tripling down on this bad idea of going to Malala for a bit.
I feel like Kimmel has this like cringe bit once every ceremony he hosts. Like at least one or two times, I always come away going, that don't really work for me. But
Most
other
people
than that,
do.
you know.
But like this really hit the sour note because she's not an actor.
Right.
She's not. She's there to.
I assume
honestly,
she was invited by somebody.
Probably like
that worked on a movie. I don't know.
I would assume she was probably invited by like the people who won Best Documentary.
Probably because
because it was also a political documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like you said, this be one weird moment. Lisa, go ahead.
I was just going to say, overall, I found the whole ceremony to be pretty heartwarming and fun. I mean, I love the Oscars. They're like my Super Bowl. And I mean, that means that I have food. We usually have champagne. We didn't have champagne this year, but because it was just me and Nick. But sometimes we've gone out dressed up to watch it. So I always have a good time, as I drunkenly told y'all later that night. But like, it was really fun and heartwarming is how I would describe it. And it's surprisingly so different from last year. I think they made all the right calls this year. And Jimmy Kimmel was cringe at times, but I think he was like the right kind of person to have host the Oscars.
Yeah. I sensed that from the minute he was announced personally. Like when he was announced, I was like, there we go. I feel like we're back on track already. Like I don't know. There was something that just felt right about it.
Yeah,
even if all the jokes don't land, that's some of them do, and some of them are really good. So
he's kind of like, like goofy and safe, and like, you know what I mean? Like you're just like, all right, yeah.
Like it's weird. Like I'm not a huge fan of Jimmy Kimmel, but every time he's hosted the Oscars, I thought he's been funny and he's been fine.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's always going to be jokes that don't land with everybody. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is, just because of different viewpoints or different life experiences. That, sometimes a joke might seem to cross a line in some people's eyes more than others. And you can't really, I don't think you can really anticipate that. But he does a really good job at hosting and kind of moving this stuff along. Like his monologue didn't seem like it dragged on at all, unlike the Globes.
And he's not like too edgy. You know what I mean? Like when you have like Ricky Gervais or someone like that,
right?
It's like, well, you're asking for there to be something shocking and intense live. And I think we all learned last year, as much as people think they want that, they don't, so like, agree. How do you stop that from happening? Like you pick the right kind of person, I think, for that job.
I think there was an era of the Oscars that like they were trying to find relevance. They've always been trying to find relevancy. I finished this book called The Oscar Wars, like pretty much right before the Oscars started. So I felt like I was like right into the history, and it's basically the history of the Academy Awards, but it's told through like these different warring like parties at different points. So like the Academy versus Orson Welles for Citizen Kane, like, and how like that didn't win because he was the new boy and he changed the way Hollywood worked, and they didn't like that. The old guard didn't like that, so he didn't get anything except for screenplay.
Well,
they couldn't ignore it.
It wasn't so much he was the young boy; it was he upset the one person that could really make their lives a living hell.
I mean, that's all true, but I mean, he was only 26, so he was the young boy in comparison to a lot of those people.
Right.
But anyway, the idea is that like there's always been controversy with the Academy Awards, and I feel like some hosts of the past would like lean into that to stir the pot of that controversy, to be reflective of the times that they were in, like Ricky Gervais or whatever. But then that actually, I think, hurt the Oscars as something like almost like family friendly to watch. Like, So Jimmy Kimmel was
Gervais never hosted the Oscars.
No, but
thank goodness.
But the days of, Billy Crystal and Steve Martin and Whoopi Goldberg from 20 years ago, like those were those were safe choices.
They should just have Steve Martin and Martin Short just do it. I mean,
amen.
As much as they can. I mean, just milk that cow. I don't care. Just keep doing it.
I agree.
Those guys are just so perfect.
We say that, but at the same time, we said the same thing about trying to get Billy Crystal back. And the last time he did it, it wasn't like his heyday. Like I love
you're
Billy
right,
Crystal.
but that's why I said both of them, because they both play off each other so well.
I do think what the Academy really needs to take a look at, as far as what works, is you don't really have like the safe stand-up comedians anymore, like Billy Crystal and Steve Martin, Martin Short. Mm-hmm. Stick to people who do entertaining talk shows, because they do this on a nightly basis that kind of have to be what they're doing to host the Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
You got to welcome everybody in. You got to keep it snappy. You know, you got to make sure you can pronounce everybody's names, as we've seen in the past. That's been difficult, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm happy they got Jimmy Kimmel. I would like Jimmy Kimmel back again.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I would not bat an eyebrow.
I know how much.
I bat an eye. Bat an eyebrow. Bat an eye. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I
think that was right. But I think you're onto something in that they're hosts, right? They make they make the people there feel comfortable and warm. I saw a clip of Jimmy Fallon the other day that somebody asked him something like, do you hype everyone up? And it's like, how can you really like all those projects? And he was like, well, that's my job. Like, that's why the host is there, or the guest is there to advertise what they're doing. And if I don't sell that, if I don't believe in it, then I'm not like doing my job. And so you have a really good point, Palmer, that like, if you hire someone that their job is to kind of like make people look good and interview people and be on their side, it's better than when you hire someone whose job it is to roast people, then you're going to get the controversy.
Yeah. There is a reason that Bob Hope was the host for a really long time.
Right.
So long.
Yeah. Like it just made people feel good. They trusted him. They knew that they were going to have a good time while he was on stage, and it was light and frothy, and we're out. Like, it shouldn't be more than that. It doesn't have to be. It's not what we're there for.
Right.
So I know this is, you know, me, Jeff, and Lisa all kind of view the Oscars as our Super Bowl, and Tim has a life, so he probably doesn't watch the pre-stuff as much. So
no, you're right.
Jeff and Lisa, did you watch any of the champagne carpet this year? Not, it wasn't red carpet, it was champagne.
Oh yeah, I noticed that change. But, I did not.
No.
Not because I didn't want to, but I felt like Sunday just snuck up on me, and suddenly it was 7.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no.
I felt the same exact way. Yeah, I had a lot going on that day.
I caught like maybe the last 20 minutes, but there was a very odd interaction between one of the people that ABC had on the carpet, Ashley Graham,
and Hugh
Grant.
Yeah, I saw that.
Poor Ashley Graham, just like any questions she asked him, he was just like, I don't want to say he was being a prick, but he obviously didn't want to be there answering questions.
Yeah.
I heard he's like that though. Like
Me too.
That's what I heard, was that like he hates interviews and he's always going to act like that.
Yeah.
Which is not really a good excuse, but
which was like another low point. Luckily it was before the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Yeah. True. That's true. If that's the lowest point, you know, and the fact that it didn't air on the main broadcast, then we're already doing way better than we did last year.
Yeah, and truthfully, probably in years previous to that.
Yeah, the hostless years were weird. It was just a weird time.
That was only like 1 year, wasn't it? Wasn't that just like the?
I thought it was 2.
Was it? I thought it was just the pandemic year.
Oh
no, I think you're right. I thought it was a couple years of doing the hostless Oscar thing where they had a bunch of
like this is gonna work a lot better.
Well, yeah, because wasn't it supposed to be Kevin Hart, and then they said, "Well, I don't know what to do," even though they had all these other people they could pick from. Right. So they just had it hostless
again.
And then
Kevin
they had it
Hart,
hostless the year after. Yeah.
So I actually found out reading that Oscar book that
one?
the hostless Oscars is a thing that had already done decades ago. So it wasn't even like a new idea.
I was looking at the history of it very recently, and I do recall seeing that like a handful of times. But it's still strange in modern times for sure. It's weird.
Yeah,
to me.
I think a good Jimmy Kimmel made fun of the program itself. Like, okay, well, we'll be here for the next 4.5 hours, you know, and whatever, and like move along and whatever. So, like, I think a good MC really does know how to like keep things moving and keep everybody engaged, and that is a lot of work. Like there is a writer's room and like how to pace things and like all that
Billy
kind of
Crystal
stuff.
used to say like it took a good chunk of his year to get the Academy Awards together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wasn't producing it by any stretch, but like getting all the material and figuring everything out, like that took him a good chunk of the year, which is why you see like a lot of people pass on it because they don't have necessarily the time to dedicate to it. That being said, I do find it weird how like you like so this was the first year we had like all of these hosts in one text chain commenting on the awards as it was going on.
That was fun for me. Yeah.
And poor Jeff was there at like 10 o'clock. He was like, this thing's going to take till 1 and this and that. But like, you can say this about the Academy Awards. It's always going to run over no matter what you do. Deal with it.
Yeah.
But from like once that hits 11 o'clock, they zip at that point. Yeah. They're like, all right, we got 5 more awards left. We're getting through these in a half hour. Let's go.
I respect that about them. And also, I will say that it made the Academy look super embarrassing when they cut categories and still went as long as they did this year. Like they cut category. I think it was last year, right?
No, last year. This year they had all 23.
They cut like 4 or some technical awards, and they showed them to the auditorium before the show, the official broadcast. And like this year, it was like, I mean, last year it made no sense because they went long anyway. That was the goal, was to cut on time for once.
Because it's not the Academy. It's always the.
I thought it was.
No,
so it's the producers.
I mean, it's the Academy in the sense of like they're the ones putting it on. But whenever you hear like, oh, we're the time problem or entertainment, it's always the station. It is always the station trying to say like, we need you guys to do this, we want you guys to do that.
Like the actual producers of the TV channel or whatever,
right?
The ABC.
And it's like, you know what? People will always complain about the Oscars being down, quote unquote, in terms of ratings. Although this year it was up.
Yep,
but it's always
18 million.
It's
viewers.
always.
Well, I'm sure everyone
highest,
was like, "What's going to happen this year?"
Yeah, 12% up. Everybody's like,
but it's
we also slap this year,
always one of the highest rated shows throughout the year. Right. Yes, it doesn't do NFL numbers on a week-to-week basis, but it's always higher than whatever is going on normally at that time slot for like a TV show.
So what's important about that is 2 things. One, everything's down. Like they're like 50 million people don't watch the Oscars anymore. 50 million people don't watch anything anymore.
Yeah,
like, they watch TikTok.
People cut cable. Like a lot of people, I did, myself incled. Right, just don't have cable anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
So you can't, like, those numbers won't ever come back. People are not people aren't invested in that kind of stuff the same way anymore because there's just more to watch, and like whether you have cable or don't have cable and all that stuff. But the I've lost my second point. So
well, I was going to throw in there that Last of Us finale aired the same time ish for an hour during the broadcast. And that still got like 8 million whatever viewers, something that was obscenely high for HBO.
It was higher than like the rest of the show or something like
higher
that.
Than House of Dragon ever did, like higher than like a lot of other HBO shows. So like, people are gonna pick and choose what they want. They wanted to watch the Oscars. Like that's awesome. Like, to me,
And the thing is, even with the Oscars, I honestly think you should watch it live if you're going to watch it. You can watch anything after the fact, no matter what. You can find it on demand on your cable station. You can find it on a streaming service. I'm pretty sure you could find the Academy putting up all the Oscars chunked up on YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So when you have that much way to consume the stuff, it's no longer like must see.
Oh, you know what I was going to say? That nothing does football numbers. Like, and I think that's
not even football.
Like
not anymore.
Nothing does football numbers. That is America's pastime. So like
that's baseball.
You say, but is it?
Yes.
Like is it? Anyway, let's talk about some of these categories and let's talk about some of these categories, these movies, these big wins. Let's start with All Quiet on the Western Front because it won a lot of awards. I think it won 7 out of its 11 nominations. Is that right? No, that's everything. That's everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah, that's it. It won like 3 or 4.
4.
Yeah. Okay. So it won 4 out of its categories.
9.
Do you guys have actually open what it won? Because I
yes. Yeah.
Score.
It won 2 that we, at least I expected, international and
cinematography.
Cinematography, yes. And then it won production design, right? And score.
And score, because they really loved those 3 chords.
Yeah, so it's funny. So I actually went back today and I was listening to bits of all of the nominated scores because I was like, I have to know why this is kind of the one that did it. And honestly, like, it kind of was the best one, just like plainly listening to them. And I'm not saying that I like it. I'm not like that I love it, but like what it kind of did in the movie, so like the music's job is to amplify tone and atmosphere and all these different things, reveal things about characters that the script doesn't reveal or the camera isn't revealing. It's like, it's that third component that is really essential to movies when it's done well. And I think it really is the score out of the ones that did that the best. I wouldn't call it like the prettiest or even the most complicated piece of music.
No, that's Babylon is both of those.
Yeah, the Babylon soundtrack is incredible. I haven't even seen the movie yet, and I listened to the soundtrack. But
it's so good on its own. Yeah,
but it is kind of par for the course. Justin Hurwitz, like it's not doing anything. It's not doing anything you wouldn't expect it to do in the movie.
Yeah, it's more jazz, but there's something. I don't know. There's something a little more like tribalistic and throwback about it that's not like his previous scores, but it is still, you can guess who scored it when you listen to it if you have any education on composers, film composers.
Absolutely.
You could definitely guess that. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I didn't dislike All Quiet score. It's just the fact that like I loved Babylon so freaking much. It complemented the movie so well. That I was rooting for it. So like that was like one of the categories that I felt very passionate about. And to see All Quiet get it, I was more like, what the heck? Like Babylon was the favorite, at least in terms of predictions and odds and stuff. I was just more surprised than anything. But I did enjoy listening to the All Quiet soundtrack on its own. And to the movie, of course.
Yeah. And to Palmer's point about the 3, like it is effective. Like, it is an actual, like...
Is it, though? Because I feel like I've heard that in many other movies before.
Sure.
It's a very Hans Zimmer-y thing to do.
It's Hans Zimmer, sure. It's Jaws, it's, like...
But I mean, like the way it was done, the way it sounded, like
motif,
those 3 exact notes in that exact way, in that exact pitch, I've heard several places before. And the Academy's always, like, sticklers for, like, well, if it's not original, we don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
I don't know. I mean, obviously they have their rules, so it obviously cleared them. But
maybe it's the fact that Babylon had a song that was about a very explicit song about my girls,
sure
whatever.
Does. Yeah, it sure does. Yeah.
They were like, oh, I can't listen. And that's very early in the soundtrack. So they probably were like, I can't listen to this anymore.
Maybe. I do think that it really comes down to like what it does for the movie, like in conjunction with everything else and not on its own. But I don't know. But yeah, I
feel like Banshees did that better then. If that's the logic behind
the Banshee,
it. Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with the logic behind it.
I actually thought that Banshee was going to win. That was like my or Fablemans because John Williams is in his 90s, and I just thought they'd just give him one more for the go. Mm-hmm. But the Fablemans soundtrack is great. The score is beautiful, but it's not. Truthfully, it's not on par with the other ones.
There's nothing like as memorable about it.
Yeah, it's a little too subdued. Like it's very much like I get what Spielberg was directing him to do. Like my mom played piano, so make this a very piano heavy score. I get that. But it just wasn't. when you hear John Williams score, you expect something more memorable for sure.
Part of that I feel also came down to his age and just like what he can and is willing to contribute at certain points and times. But yeah, the Banshees, the soundtrack is incredible. Like, so yes. And what it does in the movie is wonderful, but I don't know. I can see why the vote just ends up being all quiet, just because it has an effect on the movie, which has an effect on the viewer for good or for ill.
Yeah.
Yep. Avatar: The Way of Water. Has anybody seen it?
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of people, Tim. Look at box office numbers.
I was talking about here in this chat
present company.
Avatar's the only one I couldn't get to because it's a week long, and I couldn't get to the movie theater.
It is less time. It is less time than
you watch the Oscars, bro.
Than the longest.
In my house. Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
In my house after bedtime. You know how hard it is to like go to the movies. Like, yeah.
For 3 hours and change, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, it's almost impossible. So, I mean, it's not if the movie's an hour and a half or 2 hours, it's absolutely possible. But you add that third hour on, and I don't have a problem with long movies, but like now where I am in my life, it's impossible to watch a long movie in the theater. It requires it's too many moving pieces all at the same time.
Well, I don't have that going on, and I still didn't see it.
There you go.
So I have no excuse.
Lisa has an anti-Avatar agenda. Let's be
I
real.
kind of
She really does.
I kind of do. I won't lie.
Even more than me, and I'm pretty loud about how I don't really care about the first one that much.
Palmer, were you upset that it only...
Lisa will never forgive them for M. Night Shyamalan having to change his movie of the god-awful live-action version of the anime.
Yeah, the last Avenger, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I haven't even watched that one. Isn't that
I didn't
crazy?
think so.
It's technically not really an anime, by the way.
Yeah, it's definitely Western animation.
Yeah, but it's good. I mean, I've heard it's really good.
It is quite good.
I didn't see it. I think 3 hours. I have trouble finding that much time to sit down and watch a movie, if I'm honest.
I watch every movie in parts now. It's just I don't like the only movie I watched in one sitting for this like entire lineup of movies is Top Gun Maverick because I saw it in theaters. Every other one I saw in parts.
So Cameron was not there, right?
He was not.
He was not.
I mean, he's in production of 2 more Avatar movies right now, so.
Yeah, but is that what?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you never know.
I mean, Tom Cruise wasn't there.
He comes across.
Yeah,
that's true. But
Cameron thinks very highly of himself. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it was bitterness, but I don't know.
Yeah, we
see. I
can't say he's not going to say probably.
Yeah,
like you can have that opinion, which is fine, but it's just one of those like is like aside from people saying that, like why would you think that? Like him not being there because of bitterness.
Well, just like the reaction that he had the last time he didn't win, and when his like ex did win, like I don't know. To me, that has like changed a little bit how I view him. And to be clear, that would never stop me from seeing a movie a director made. It's just an observation.
Let's not forget they got divorced, so she did take half his money. So, so I'm not saying he's right to be angry at her, but I could always see like that skewing your argument about somebody.
I mean, again, like if I wanted to see the movie, then I would see it, and that definitely wouldn't hold me back. I just don't have a big interest in Avatar, but him being a baby, I mean, some of my favorite directors are huge babies, and I don't care, so that wouldn't stop me.
It's really the question is, what do you have against Smurfs?
And I don't even know. Like, I could come up with like moral reasons, which I feel like is something the internet does a lot, where they feel like they have to come up with like a righteous reason that they won't watch a movie. But I'll just be honest, I'm just not interested. Yeah,
like if the movie isn't popular, then they can not like it and not care. But yeah,
that's true.
When something makes like billions of dollars, when they refuse to see it for whatever reason, And I'm not saying like people who have moral reasons against it aren't justified. I'm willing. There are some people who say that, and I'm like, do you really have moral things
probably.
against it, or are you just
Understand.
regurgitating somebody else?
Yeah, or it's like, or you could just not like it, and like nobody gets hurt if you don't see it.
Yeah,
like
you don't have to.
you don't have to justify it.
Right.
Just a movie.
You can just have bad taste in movies like Jeff.
How dare you, sir? I will say about a Vader. I used to have a coworker that said Avatar like a Vader. Anyway, I will say
that's amazing.
I know. Like that's not.
I love that.
You know what? I'm not even going to correct you. That's hilarious. Just keep saying it that way. That's funny. But anyway, when it won visual effects, I was like, yeah, no. I mean, that was obvious.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, having seen the movie in 3D, high frame rate, like whatever the best picture possible. That was my main takeaway of the movie was, well, yeah, this is the best visual feast I've ever encountered in my lifetime. Like it's clearly going to win that award and deserved to. So I wasn't like, I wasn't like one of those haters or whatever that as much as I try to pretend to be for Palmer's sake. I'm not like one of those haters that's like, I hope it loses, yeah.
We didn't actually talk about All Quiet's like as a movie. Like, what did you guys think of All Quiet on the Western Front? I'm going to be perfectly honest. I found it really boring.
Yeah, it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
I could not get into it. And the only time it actually wrapped me into it was when they're like the war's over and it's the armistice and they're all the soldiers are standing there and the general is like, okay, we're going to go back out and it's not over till 11. So why don't you just go back out there and keep fighting because, like show them what Germany's made of. You guys go.
One last time, yeah.
One last time. That is
There's
when
the good guys here, guys.
Yeah, that's when the movie really that's when it really captured my attention. But I thought it was beautiful. Like it was so well shot. It was like really it looked great. It like historically accurate, blah blah blah. I get the story. I've read the book. The movie just didn't do anything for me. But Palmer and I have talked about this a lot on the show. It takes a lot for me to like a war movie. Like a lot.
Okay.
Especially nowadays where it was shot really well. I'm not going to take that away from it. But it didn't really add anything to war movies that I've seen in the past that were just much more interesting.
Well, then you guys watch a lot of them because they are sort of a favorite.
They are a staple.
Of
they
award
are.
shows.
Yeah.
And I will say that before I saw it, I had the same attitude going in, I would say. Like, I feel like World War I is like the new World War II.
Totally.
Like, I feel like for a while we only saw World War II as like the most exciting, the most polarizing war. Everyone knows who the good and bad guys are. But World War I exists more in the gray and I think kind of mirrors more the political climate now where things are really tense and not great. And we're kind of trying to examine life now under that lens a little bit. And I think that's interesting, but I agree with you that sometimes with war movies, it feels like, well, what more is there to say? Like I was like, I walked into it going, I feel like these are just like Oscar favorites where it's like everyone likes reliving this experience for some reason over and over. It's very emotional. It's like safe. It's like the safest, I think, male oriented thing to examine. Like for some reason, we don't examine emotions in men a lot unless it's a war movie.
Or Goodwill Hunting.
Or that one about the guy that I'm not going to say the right title anyway.
Mice and Men?
Yeah, no, I can't remember what it was called. It was the one with the Affleck brother, but anyway.
Manchester by the Sea.
Manchester?
Yes. But I was thinking this time when I was watching it, I did find myself very interested. I thought visually it was really captivating too. Like I selected it for like best makeup because I thought there were some really like iconic looking scenes where he would like the main character had like all the mud on him and things like that. It just looked very striking. Yeah. And there was a lot of beautiful cinematography. And so I felt like those aspects of the movie made the movie more interesting to me than a lot of other war movies. But at the same time, like plot wise and everything else, it was like other war movies I'd seen before.
What I think is a downside of the movie being an adaptation of an older book is that war movies, since All Quiet on the Western Front came out, the book came out, have just been copying the perspective of All Quiet on the Western Front, because it is the first, apart from maybe the Red Badge of Courage, it is really the first of its kind to be like, war is bad. Here's the terribleness of it, quite literally in the trenches, you know. And so the glorification of war was, you know, very popular. You know, can still be Top Gun Maverick. And so
right, it's like propaganda,
right? Yeah. And so in its own way. So, but because we've now seen that for a long time, like, you get the original version of it, and you're like, well, I have seen this before, because it's been copying that. It's been copying that idea for a long time already.
I thought the uniform thing in the beginning.
Oh my gosh!
You know, like we meet that first guy, and then,
dude,
you know, I thought that was
like,
very
floored me, and then I was like, okay, movie, you got me.
Exactly,
like,
that pulled me in, and you know, if I had read the book, then maybe it wouldn't pull me in as much. But not knowing that was coming, and then having that perspective for the rest of the film was really good. And I was like, oh, none of these kids are going to make it out, huh? Like, that was like my first thought. I was like, oh, like, this is going to end really bad. It had
the way that they do it, though, is like so, especially when you compare it to the other one that did win Best Picture, the other All Quiet adaptation, which is American version of it. Very weird. But with the way that ended, where he's like, I'm going to draw this thing and be like, you know, haphazard and get shot in the head. This is like, no, he's following orders. He's going in and he's going to have that final battle or whatever for the country. And it's still a shocking death, but we know it's going to happen because a lot of us have seen the other version of the movie. But still, when it happens, I'm like, oh no. Like, it was just, and then the way that they shot it, where they had him kind of sit there almost like he could have just sat right back up and at any minute. And he looked strangely at peace. It was, it's a haunting movie for me. That movie really made an impression on me.
It reminded me a little bit of like The Hurt Locker, like how at the end of the movie, you know, he goes through all this horrible stuff, but then he's having trouble like picking out a cereal. Right. And that's kind of how I felt like the soldiers were. It ruined them. You know, the horror that they saw, they could not go back to civilian life. It seemed like.
Yeah, I like that aspect of Hurt Locker for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the ending too, like where the movie ends and then it has like those statistics about all the deaths and how nobody really gained any ground and stuff like that, almost made me emotional. Like, this movie, it definitely impacted me a little more than you guys. I'm sorry, but
no, I'm sorry.
I'm glad that you liked it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine.
Yeah. Sorry, Lisa. Go ahead.
I was just gonna agree with you in that, like, I felt like the characters in the film, they go out and they are told to do what they're doing, but it also kind of felt like, emotionally at least, the main character, I mean, I think he wanted to go out that way. Like, it was like he didn't really want to go back to regular life.
Especially like after that scene where he's having to fight this one soldier, just one soldier who will not die. And apparently in the book, and I don't, Tim, did you read the book?
It's been like 20 years, so like.
Oh, okay. But apparently in the book, that scene lasts hours. Like that.
Oh God.
Like that guy is dying for a very long time, and I think that's the moment, at least to me, where the character is like, I think this is my destiny too.
And also suddenly his superior that like kills himself, you know, instead of, because he's like handicapped, and so he can't mentally deal with that, and he's like, what'll I be good for? It's like, again, they've kind of reprogrammed themselves almost to be like only good at this, and I don't know.
I totally get the perspective of like, war is hell. We've seen that. I get it. Like, I totally understand where you guys are coming from with that. I don't know. These type of movies just hit me. Like, Dunkirk was the same way for me. Where
I loved Dunkirk, though.
Yeah, where I was like, man, war is hell, and that's a great depiction of it and stuff like that. But that was more about just regular people trying to help out. What I think works
about Dunkirk is that it is making the retreat about bravery, right? It's about like how to why save it, why running away can be a good thing. But then on top of that, it's like the juxtaposition of the soldiers running, but the civilians running into war,
Right?
Like all in the name of protection and saving. So it's like that the switch between.
Yeah, that's definitely why. That's definitely why I like that movie more. But it's for sure a harder sell to an audience to be like to have your main plot be what's the point of war? You know, like people are going to be like, well, what was the point of that? And the movie so much as more or less says that at the end of the movie, like, what's the point of war? And that's going to be kind of hard for a lot of people to watch and be like, feel like their time was valued watching that movie. Like, I don't know. So I can kind of see the perspective of like, why did I watch that? It was just, nobody gained any traction. There was no win. There was no feeling. There's no good feelings coming out of this movie.
Right. It's a beatdown. I'm not going to lie to you. Like
it's
you
not the only beatdown that's
like,
nominated for sure, but yes,
that's true.
Beatdown.
But you're just kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to sit down and have a bad time, and I did. I thought it was a good movie.
That's true. What does work for me in the timeliness of All Quiet is obviously the war in Ukraine. But like there's so many reports of last year when the Russians got there and they were like, where are the Nazis? We were told that there were Nazis here. Like, why aren't you them? And like, so you have a lot of Russian defectors from the army because of that and like all this stuff. And that is in some ways like this, like it's like you're trying to get rid of the stigma of like, oh, this whole country is bad because of this. It's leadership that tricks you, that fools you into doing things that you should, that like in like because you want to believe in something greater than yourself, and they use that against you. That's very really timely for America, very much for Russia, for
right. It's very much like the same exact goal that Paths of Glory had, that like the original All Quiet had. Very timely pieces of, granted, those were larger wars, but very timely pieces of entertainment. That's not the right word to use, but
warnings about the dangers of nationalism,
indoctrination.
And how they can be,
yeah.
Palmer, you hated it. Why?
I just found it, like I said, it looked fine. I felt I've seen this movie before, done much better, either acting wise or even just like story wise.
That actually, I actually have a question. Sorry, and you can answer first, Palmer. But who watched it dubbed and who watched it subtitled?
So I watched it subtitled.
I watched it subtitled, but I don't think I made like a choice. It was like
it was by default for that.
Yeah,
for
I pressed play and I assumed that
Weird,
was the only way I could
watch it. For me, it was defaulted to dub.
Dubbed with live action stuff is clunky for me, so I usually don't.
I don't
normally.
Do it for
normally,
Dark,
I would agree with
German
you.
Show, I don't. Yeah, I just can't.
Oh yeah, for Dark too, that would drive me crazy. I can't. I don't know why my brain just like won't allow it.
Yeah,
I would agree with you.
Yeah, I did the dub.
It was fine.
The dub was good. Yeah, it was good. The weirdest part about it is that they all had British accents, and I knew it was Germany, so it was like really throwing me. That I was like,
so
I know you're German, but you sound British.
Well,
and so, but
with
I had to
languages,
do
I feel like
it
flows better.
Yeah,
like
I don't have
German
the
or
capacity
Swedish
for,
or sorry,
but
okay.
I just found it utterly boring. Like I couldn't get into any of the characters or their reasons for being there. I realized it wasn't their choice to be there. It was their country's leadership choices. But I also know, like, I don't really need to see a movie about a war from the viewpoint of the people that were in the wrong. Like, I don't need, like, if you came out with a World War II movie about Germany and it's from their side, like, I don't need to see that.
I get that, but I
don't really care to see that.
Nazis. Like, I think
they weren't
picked the right time period and the right war to do that with. Like before we crossed that bridge or whatever. But I think it was timely because
they weren't like the epitome of evil, like Nazism.
Yeah, because I feel like that's a
they
really
were
safe
still
thing
the
to pick.
ones. They were not the people in the right in the war.
Right, but sometimes people think
the
they're right. I feel like that was the point.
Right,
yeah.
the point is that they like to watch somebody be tricked, and the repercussions of those actions.
And that's the thing is, to do that, you're gonna need to do a really good job selling it to me, and this wasn't it.
I think if the characters were older, I would have a harder time.
Yeah,
because then they would be politically aware and like able to make decisions.
The main guy lied about his age to enlist, right?
Right.
He was like 16 or 15, and he was like, "Oh no, I'm 18 or whatever."
But even then, let's not jump to that conclusion. Like for that time frame, assuming people were as politically active as they are today. Like even today, like there's a lot more political activity, but I don't think it's nearly to the extent as it should be to prevent something like this from happening again.
Right.
But this kind of stuff does
like
still
World War
happen,
I is the war that like got started because everyone was just like, well, we're friends with these guys, so we gotta go back them up. You know, it wasn't like a coalesced around one thing. It should have just been between like the two countries that had their beefs, and everyone else got dragged into it.
Yeah, it's not when you sign treaties and stuff though. You can't really do that.
I am glad we got to see that perspective, by the way, in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I've seen the one from the 30s. I've seen that like twice, and it wasn't recent. So to see the actual like them coming together and trying to put a treaty together to what do you call it when it's like a armistice or whatever? They're trying to they're trying to basically like put an end to the whole war. I enjoyed seeing that perspective because even though it is like, let's get back to the war or whatever, when you're a guy, it's kind of like, I want to see the war stuff. But like, but I was still kind of into that side of it.
I liked it too because it was like so many lives hung in the balance.
Daniel Bruhl's character is like a real guy that, he was like I think the Nazis like ended up arresting him because he was very not a fan of Hitler. I'm gonna have to look up that character.
Honestly, you know what I think did the worst in my mind? The reason why this movie doesn't resonate for me, and I said, like, I've seen kind of this point of view, like war is bad, and the whole like nationalism thing, and I've seen it done better. MASH, like if I've never seen the series MASH, maybe this movie does better. Maybe this movie does, gets it for me a little bit more. But MASH hit a lot of the same things throughout its entire run, and to me it's just did it so much better.
I think it is easier for the characters in MASH though because they were like the medical personnel, not quite the same.
And they were dragged into it, like they weren't there of their own free will.
Yeah, they were there to like.
Oh, they were drafted. That was the Vietnam War, right? They were drafted.
Yeah,
they're drafted and they're like medical personnel. Not, I think it. Yeah, I think it would be harder to do if they weren't.
Yeah, but they do deal with it here and there with.
They definitely do. They were definitely commenting on that war big time.
Right,
like it was.
But by the way, I did look up Daniel Bruhl's character. He was the Minister of Finance in Germany, and he spoke out against World War I, and he was assassinated by a Nazi group. So he was not a friend of the Reich, so to speak.
Yeah. I like that scene, too, because I felt like it really did a good job of, like, demonstrating all the lives that get lost so flippantly over like them just having this, like men in a room having a standoff equals all these people dying.
Yeah, just chatting while kids are out there freaking.
Yeah,
I would just like to interject that we've only talked about one movie, so we're
gonna
move on from All Quiet on the Western Front.
We talked about Avatar.
Do you want to talk about it more? Lisa and I haven't seen it, but Jeff and Palmer, you're welcome to talk about it if you want. This is your time.
I mean, we're good.
Okay,
are you sure?
On. Okay.
I mean, I'll just say I really liked it. I saw the first one. They did the re-release for the first one, and I never saw the first one in a movie theater. So I saw it right before Avatar 2 came out in the movie theater. No regrets. It was a good experience. It was a fun experience. But I'm still not like, I'm not fawning over the story or anything like that. It's kind of similar to how Palmer feels about the All Quiet story. I'm kind of like,
honestly,
whatever.
I don't know. I don't know of one person that's ever really like pushed like the story is the greatest thing of all time.
No. I haven't heard any.
I've definitely heard Palmer say that.
I've heard.
Yeah, because it was, but that's besides the point.
but I've heard people like definitely fawn over the story and the themes and stuff that I have seen Avatar better in other movies. Yeah. But Avatar 2 is still it was just a great, very memorable theater experience. Even if some of the characters annoyed the hell out of me, even if like some sequences just didn't make sense, it was just so much fun.
And it was Star Trek 4.
Pretty much, yeah. Talking to whales. Yep.
Yeah. Avatar 1 is Pocahontas. Avatar 2 is Star Trek 4. I can't wait to see what we get with Avatar 3, really. It's going to be Terminator 2 somehow.
Moving on.
Probably.
Moving on. The Banshees of Inisherin. This was one of my top movies of the year when we did our top movie podcast. I just thought it was gold from top to bottom. I understand why it didn't win Best Picture, but I think it is absolutely one of those movies that where like all of it is just from top to bottom doing the best that it could possibly do in a cohesive manner. I just love that it starts so simply and with a real tinge of realism. Mm-hmm. And like people can relate to people not being friends, like to not being friends with somebody anymore. Like
this is a real life version of a Facebook unfriending. Like, this is how people had to do it. You know, like in a small town.
I just don't like you no more.
Just find you a bit dull. He's always been dull.
Yeah, and I just love how off the rails it goes.
Yeah,
as the story progresses, but it's such a steady incline up to this point. So by the time that you reach the climax of the film, you're 100% in on the nonsense that is happening.
Right.
And because it just feels like that's the natural conclusion to the story. And Lisa.
I feel like I need to see it again. I'm not as in love with it as everybody else is. I felt like it was okay. Thought it was interesting. But I guess some of the themes were, I thought about it a lot afterwards. It was disturbing. I thought a lot. It was more disturbing than I thought it was going to be. And I guess I definitely afterwards was like looking up, like, what did it all mean? Maybe I'm just like a dum-dum or something. I need to see it again, but I don't know. I want to hear more from y'all about why you loved it. So I can understand, I guess.
Jeff.
I hated it. Didn't understand anything they were saying. No, I'm kidding.
Your background is Banshees.
I know. And the dog.
Strange. You guys keep talking. I need to refill my water because my jaw hurts. So I'm going to go.
I get it.
So
wisdom teeth problems. I get it. It's all good. Back. So with Banshees, I'm not surprised that I loved it though. I mean, Martin McDonagh writes movies that I just tend to always love. Even Seven Psychopaths, which people consider as lesser work, I love that movie. But yeah, this whole idea of, I guess we would call it unfriending nowadays. This whole idea of unfriending somebody for what you would view as like altruistic reasons that you feel like would contribute more to your legacy and stuff like that, which is a little bit, it's, as the movie says, it's not nice. I don't know. There's just a lot to think about there in terms of who, at least there's a lot that I felt I could apply to myself and like, who have I unfriended for these dumb reasons? Like, am I not a nice person? This made me like honestly assess myself in that way, which is kind of strange for a movie to do like that. Cause this is at the end of the day, more a dark comedy.
Maybe that was my problem with it then, Jeff. Maybe that's why I have a hard time with it.
You're just a good person.
No, yeah, I'm just such a good person.
I'm just so I've done nothing wrong. So
right.
No, I think that, I feel a couple different ways about friendship. I mean, number one, I think that you should not have to make someone a villain in your own mind just to unfriend them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's crazy that people feel like that, how people are like, I had an ex-friend and they were a narcissist and they were this, and it's like, were they, or did you just, do you have to do we feel like as a society, we have to invent this horrible reason to unfriend someone?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's interesting about the movie too, right? Is how he's like, there's not really a nefarious or reason. There's not this real, actual deep-seated motivation for him to do it other than, I just want to do something with music. And I feel like talking to you every day and not really talking about anything at all, having like a Seinfeld kind of friendship is not the way to go about it. And it is harsh, especially because they're in a small town. They're going to see each other every day, all the time. But it's, yeah, you're right though. There is something that we do generally speaking, where we don't feel like we have to be like invent reasons why we can't be friends with somebody anymore because they're a bad person or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But I feel like at some point the main character that has like these reasons that aren't big, I feel like the way that he like explains them to Colin Farrell's character is so mean and so over the top that it's like he created, the monster that Colin Farrell becomes. I feel like there was a way he could have definitely not done that. Like, what if he just like went, "Hey, let's hang out every Wednesday and that's it," or something like that? Or
there was no compromise for him.
And that's the thing. So, he's like, "Oh, I want to do stuff with music, and I can't do that if we talk to each other all the time." But he's still doing most of the same things he was doing, just without Colin Farrell there. Like,
exactly, he was like making Colin Farrell kind of like a boogeyman. Like, it's your fault that I effed up, and it's like, no, you just did nothing with your life. That's not my fault. That's your fault.
I mean, I can kind of see where he's coming from because it's the effect that Tim's had on me. But still,
I texted Palmer maybe 10 minutes into this movie. I was like, "This is us in 20 years."
But like, and also, do you want to get a pint?
Yeah.
Are you having a roll?
Yeah. So I'm kind of with Lisa. Like, I think the acting in this movie is really good.
Oh, really good.
I think I think it looks pretty for being on an isolated island.
That's
I like
why
how
it's
they
pretty.
didn't
What do you mean for being on an isolated island?
I like how like one 300-year-old woman knitted all the sweaters for this movie.
Yes. That's not.
That was a cute fact.
That's
Thank you
a
for
true thing
that.
because people won't believe you if you follow.
Well, she wasn't 300.
So,
she was older, but I don't know if they actually said her age. But yeah, and I like they didn't use like his one thing was I don't want traditional Irish music, for the score.
That's why the score works for me.
Yeah,
because it's not so predictable and like Irish.
But that being said, my biggest complaint with this movie is the same thing like that makes it interesting enough to like the movie is the writing. I think the writing is interesting enough and it has its moments where it's entertaining, but overall like I can't wrap my head around the premise and the way it deteriorates to the point it deteriorates to. Just like it makes no sense to me. Like, all right, you don't want to be friends with the guy, and then he's like, "Well, if you keep trying to be friends with me, I'm gonna cut off parts of my body," and so he does, and then something happens because of that, and now we're burning down people's houses. Like it.
Well, that's
the leaps.
I mean, it's
logic.
in the movie, but you're ignoring it because you don't like good movies. So they're in a small town. They're gonna see each other all the time. Like
I also feel like it's like an allegory almost.
So that's why things escalated the way they did.
What I'm saying is the leaps in logic to get from point A to point B. Not that it was like, well, we're still going to have to see each other because you're going to have to see each other. Just like the way the way he specifically handles things throughout, say.
Talking about Brendan Gleeson's character? Yeah.
Like the way he specifically handles things for like 75% of this movie. Like he's not
a nice person. Yeah.
He's not, but still it's like it's baffling.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there like I don't understand
it's supposed to be baffling because you're baffled along with Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's written almost like it's a folktale. Or like an allegory, like
it's
with the banshees
fable,
and all that stuff. So it's like you almost are supposed to look at it like that. Like to me, the whole movie felt like you were like reading like an old book or something.
Yeah, that's how it felt to me too. Yeah.
And then the ending kind of want you to be against Colin Farrell's character.
I don't think so. No, I didn't.
I think it does because I think this movie specifically lays blame at him for several things like that he doesn't necessarily get pushed into doing, but because of things that are happening that are outside of his control or dumbly happening, causes him to fray to the point where he also starts lashing out that has a very real effect on other people's lives. And like the other the other guy that got nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Barry Keoghan.
Yeah, like his
God,
character.
that whole plot, I was like, that almost felt, I don't want to say too far, but
I was
like, what was
was
the point
weird.
of that? That was like messed up.
And the only reason he's there, in my opinion, is so what happens to him gives you a reason to dislike Colin Farrell's character.
No.
Because throughout most of the movie, you're right, Lisa, he's not necessarily, he's not needed in this movie.
I think Barry Keoghan's performance was amazing. It was great.
Yeah.
I did wonder what Tim and Jeff, what do you think about that character's role in the story? What do you think his role was in the story? Or am I overthinking
I think the way I took it is God, this is like on the tip of my brain, and let's see if it comes out my mouth correctly. I think his character feeds into the metaphor of the people that we overlook or mistreat while we're dealing with our own problems. That might need extra attention. Like, because he's got his own issues going on, and he's being abused. There's all these things that he's dealing with, but everybody in the town,
didn't do anything.
Specifically our main two characters, are like ignoring that just to have their own bickering session.
Yeah,
Colin
right.
is not.
Colin's not. Colin doesn't really have a lot of patience for him, though.
Colin only tolerated him because Gleason wasn't around, and he in fact doesn't like Barry Keoghan's character, thinks he's annoying.
Mm-hmm.
He's treating him the way that Gleason treats Colin. Actually,
yeah, it's like trickling down.
And
it's like a circle of, or a chain of meanness.
Right.
Basically,
his role is
to
to showcase the irony of people's actions, right? To kind of like keep going along.
Colin's
with
the only
Jeff's
one
point.
that
I'm
sticks up for him
I'm
throughout this
talking,
movie.
Palmer.
Where's that mute button? I'm just
I have the power. And so, no, his role is to showcase the irony of people's actions, right? Like we say, don't judge people, like, or we tell little kids, don't judge people. It's not very nice. And then like our national pastime is watching people judge one another on television. Right, like
I thought our national pastime was football.
Yes, in which people judge each other.
We have so many national pastimes we're discovering.
But like, I mean, like one of the most popular things like we watch on TV is reality shows in which we judge people and then get judged, and then we're like, but don't judge people, and and like, and we just like, and it's not even like, just like, oh, your singing was okay. It's like that's what you chose to wear to audition, or like, like, oh, you answered that question on Jeopardy, kind of weird person. Like we just do that all the time while ignoring larger issues. And so we're so wrapped up in ourselves to Jeff's point. And so like Colin Farrell's character is so wrapped up in himself, and Brendan Gleeson's character is so wrapped up in himself, and then the island is so wrapped up in himself. And the only person that's not really is Carrie Condon. But she gets the opportunity to be wrapped up in herself, and she takes it. Right.
Or like, she also just left, and she tries to tell Colin Farrell's character, like, that place is the problem. Like, you guys need to leave there. Mm-hmm. And they're so comfortable in their misery almost that they don't make the one change that would fix everything. It's like, just get off that island.
But isn't that
it's almost like the drama is too addicting for them.
Yeah, right. That's people. Yeah,
that's a good point. See, y'all are convincing me. This is what I...
There's a lot to chew on with this very on the surface type of... It's very straight, like premise-wise, it's what you see is what you get type of movie. There's no like, oh, what a mind-bending movie. There's no big twist or anything. What you see is what you get. But there's just a lot, at least for me, I took away so much to think about, like that ending shot, like the ending exchange they had to, especially about like, I don't want to spoil it, but it's... I
was I feel like I'm spoiling stuff too, but
no,
I really liked Barry Keoghan's character and felt a lot of empathy for that character.
Yeah, same.
And I thought the way he played it was interesting. I think he's like an interesting actor that always gives a bizarre performance that's really good.
Every time. And Carrie Condon, I can't say, I mean, I've seen her in a ton of other stuff, but as a supporting, as an even more supporting character where it's like you barely see her. So it was awesome to be able to see her to like really shine in this. And honestly, I thought she would win supporting actress up until like
Mm.
the odds and predictions kind of kept shifting in that category. But like she was definitely a favorite. She won the BAFTA, right? I think she did win some awards for the role.
I think so.
Yeah, so she's just freaking remarkable in the movie. But yeah, the movie is like ultimately a meditation on being nice, and what does that mean? And really, we don't see anybody nice in the movie. Everybody's kind of got their own motives, and you know, maybe the only nice person was Barry Keoghan's character, and he was mistreated. You know, so I mean,
yeah.
What currency really does being nice have? You know.
Well, I think Colin Farrell was nice to a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You certainly seem to have started that way. Yeah. Right. I love it. Let's move on to Elvis. Jeff's got thoughts on Elvis. I watched Elvis, I think, over like 3 nights. And my wife I don't think she had ever seen a Baz Luhrmann film. So I had to be like, all right, it's going to get weird and you're going to either be in or you're going to hate it. Like there's
you're going to
really
lose your
no
mind
in
at the
between.
editing. Yeah.
And she ended up liking it, which is good.
Good.
You know, we both liked it. I think it rests not solely on Austin Butler's performance, but it is truly the thing that can make or break the movie in its totality. Like to believe him as Elvis, to believe in his earnestness and his willfulness and his desire to make music, to make art, and to live freely, I think works really well in juxtaposition to Colonel Parker, who I didn't love Tom Hanks as Colonel Parker, but he was like doing a shtick instead of like Austin Butler, who is Elvis. Like, you know, like I thought, so they didn't blend together the way that I really wanted them to. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it was so lovely and refreshing to see Tom Hanks not be America's dad. Like, you know, to like remind people that he is an actor and like he can do other things. As far as it not winning anything, I was a little surprised at some things.
Same here.
But I also, like, as in terms of like cinematography and editing, it's frantic even for Luhrmann. I found like it's just like unceasing in its momentum, and I think his stronger movies give moments of rest, but the only thing I did kind of like about it is that it does slow its pace as Elvis ages. So does the pace of the movie.
Yes.
It's like really nicely subtle that like the energy from the king himself is waning, and so is the movie itself. And I did like that aspect of it in terms of editing. But yeah, I really liked it. It's not Luhrmann's strongest movie, but I certainly loved it for Austin Butler, if anything else. And it made me reappreciate Elvis, which I think is more of the bigger thing than anything else, that I just like to take away the king is, I think, important.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, you had things to say.
I did not know anything about Colonel Robert Parker, period. I didn't know this. I didn't know who this dude was. The movie had to explain a lot to me, basically. I only knew about Elvis, obviously, from what I've seen in pop culture and certain footage that's very famous. So, yes, that was very jarring to me as well to see whatever caricature Tom Hanks was doing in the movie. But then when I Googled Colonel Robert Parker, I was like, oh, so he nailed it.
Oh,
like,
he did. He totally.
If you look him up, it's
yeah.
like he's got this weird, unplaceable accent. He's like, I think he's Danish or something. But like he was clearly trying, like he was just making stuff up about himself and his personality and his background. So it kind of makes sense. It's I guess I don't know if it plays for a movie. I don't know. It's really hard to explain what didn't work.
That there's like this juxtaposition between the showman and the showman. Like, you know, and I think that's like Colonel Parker's the showman. Like you never know if he's telling the truth or not, and he's always putting on an affect. And then you have the like extreme earnestness of Elvis, the showman, the guy who does the show.
Austin Butler is a freaking force in the movie.
Yeah,
dude. He has earned every award that he has won for this role.
I agree, and it's just but like in the movie itself, like Colonel Parker, Tom Hanks's Colonel Parker, it feels like a caricature of the caricature, instead of him feeling like I just don't know if it's even possible. Like, I mean, I just don't even know if it's possible to like give the performance that I would have wanted that would
like to play
Butler's.
that specific character. Honestly, like that's
I just
very
don't know
challenging.
if it's even possible.
Yeah. True, especially. I mean, we saw Tom Hanks do it, and a lot of people were not rubbed the right way with that. And it's like, I don't know how you could have played that character right. Honestly,
so aside from like say industry people, my question is about the people who disliked it heavily that I've seen were like average moviegoers.
Oh,
is that because it is not? Like, this is, to me, is the first time, and I can't remember how long, that I could watch a movie and I could forget that I'm watching Tom Hanks.
Wow.
I would say yes, only because I know a few people that didn't know it was Tom Hanks the whole time. Like, they didn't know Tom Hanks was in the movie.
True.
Yeah,
He's wearing a lot. He's wearing a lot
and they
of
were
stuff.
like, whoa,
That's
that was Tom
interesting.
Hanks. And, I mean, I knew it was him, so sometimes you're like, it's tough when you, like,
Right,
know
but
it's the person you're, like, looking
so like the
for
Tom
the
Hanks
person
people
in the role.
The Tom Hanks people that go out and see this movie, to see him finally like stretch his acting legs for, like I said, for me for the first time in a long time, and to not get the Tom Cruise that they're so accustomed to.
Hanks.
Is that kind of like what put some people off on his thing? Because you're right, the look is nailed, the accent is nailed. To me, this is probably my favorite Tom Hanks performance in at least 10, 15 years.
I liked his performance in A Man Called Otto more, which is weird, but to say.
I did see that after Elvis, and I did really like him in that movie.
Yeah, he's so good in that movie. Yeah.
So I think this movie was good. I felt the length. I know we've been talking a lot about length tonight.
It was long.
It was a little too long.
Yeah.
There were points in the movie where I paused it, looked at the clock, and I was like, "Oh my god!" But and I know I didn't used to say stuff like that, so maybe that's a sign I'm getting older. I don't know. But Tom Hanks's performance was very cartoonish. That being said, you're watching a Baz Luhrmann film, so I feel like
you are at the end of the day. Yes, you are.
It's wacky a little bit.
Yeah,
the performances in a Luhrmann film aren't always cartoonish, though. You know, like
but I'm thinking of some that are.
Yeah,
you know, so it's like not out of character for him to like have serious people and then like one. I don't know. To me, maybe I'm misremembering though. Could be.
Also, how many people are going to see this movie based on Elvis's life that are used to Baz Luhrmann movies?
I know. They got to be like, what is going on? Because it's like Tim said, I wanted to double down to something he said. That first hour is unfiltered Baz Luhrmann. It is like, dude, it's everything I personally do not like about watching a Baz Luhrmann movie. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of people like that, but I don't. And on top of that, there's a Walk Hard element to it, where Walk Hard spoofed everything and took the piss out of all of the music biopic
Walk Hard
stuff.
is wonderful.
And then Elvis did it for real and legitimately, and it just made me go, well, I just saw this in Walk Hard. Like, it's just so silly.
That was like 15 years ago at this point.
I know, but it's still in the front of my mind when I watch a music biopic.
It is for me too.
Yeah, I can't turn it off. I don't know how to.
I've never seen Walk Hard, but I know like it. They follow a very explicit format.
And Elvis came out the same year as the Weird Al movie, so like, come on, like you can't do a serious music biopic the same year as a spoof of it. It's just difficult to me, is all I'm saying. But anyway, that last hour and a half, because I think it's 2.5 hours, right? To me, it soared like completely. Like when he, as Tim mentioned, as Elvis matured, the movie kind of did too. And just seeing him come into his own artistry and the way Austin Butler totally embodied that, man, I was really hooked to the second and third act. Basically, I was just floored by production design, the way it was shot, the makeup, especially in the final shots, unbelievable. I didn't
know a lot about Elvis other than that his life was tragic, that it ended, but I feel like the movie really nailed I feel like this is something I didn't realize till I was older, but there's so many huge stars that like in a lot of ways are sort of, I don't want to say like created by their label, but like, I don't know, it's like they have this raw talent. I mean, this is what all biopics are about, but it's like they have this raw talent and they're so young, and it's like somebody comes in and kind of takes advantage of that, right?
Yep.
And you just see Elvis so differently. Like I saw Elvis as like this huge star, and the movie kind of shows you, you know, who he is and how easy it is for someone in that position to be taken advantage of. Yeah. And it just, I don't know, it just kind of gave,
and that's why his career was like, that's why his career was like peaks and valleys and not just highs, you know, because he was forced into doing these movies and crap that he did not want to do, you know.
Yeah.
What's ultimately weird was that we got this Elvis movie that shows like how tragic his story was at times, but it didn't overtake the movie completely.
Yes,
the movie was not weighted down to the point where it was just like, woe is Elvis, heavy, like we've seen with another biopic that came out this year in
Weird Al?
in Bombshell.
Yeah,
so and that was my criticism of it. I don't like when we do these big movies about really famous women, and it feels like that's always the angle. Like they were so famous, but their life was so horrible, and they focus so much more on the tragedy than they do on that person's accomplishments. And I agree with you. I like what Elvis did, because it's like, I know it's not about a woman, but it's like focusing on what he did that was great and not just the tragedy in his life.
It did a good thing of mixing both in there,
totally.
Which is what I really hope people take. Like, even if you don't like his editing process or his frenetic pacing, I hope people that watch this movie, that decide to do a biopic in the future, take away is you can easily balance it without losing sight of the issues in the movie.
Yeah.
And I would recommend to people that might be turned off by the frenetic pacing to just stick with the movie, because it really does, like, it gets so good. Like, I was so floored by the point where I think it was the point where it's a very dark scene, and they're like, I think they're at the hotel, and he's arguing in the lobby or something with Robert Parker, I think.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, I think I love this movie now. Like, I just kind of turned a corner and I was just hooked. That's when I knew. It's just a special movie, man. It really is. I came around, basically.
Anybody want to add anything to our Elvis conversation?
I wish it won makeup, like I said, for that final shot, especially because of how seamless it looked. It was unbelievable to me.
Oh, yeah,
I had it for music too, and what else? Sound. I think I liked the sound.
The sound is good.
I thought it was done very, very well, and so even though I have a couple criticisms of it, I think it's really interesting and appreciate that it educated me a little bit. After watching it, started looking up like documentaries. I was like, is this really true?
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of things I looked up and I was like, oh, it is pretty true.
Oh, like
and a lot of people,
him writing that song about, like, after was it Robert Kennedy, I think, got shot? Is that who it was, or was it JFK? Which one?
Oh,
one?
Robert Kennedy.
Yeah, and I just
so that happened. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, Robert Kennedy actually died.
No, not.
Oh.
The fact that he was like, we gotta do a statement or something. We gotta do a song. That's my Elvis impression.
That was good. That was good. Elvis.
But
is he here? I got chills.
It was definitely not the worst thing you've done today.
What is the worst thing he's done? Was it?
Well, I mean, he showed up, so
wow.
It was really
no
error in judgment on my part.
I agree. I think like it was. I thought it was really done well, and it's definitely worth a watch. I mean,
absolutely,
really good.
Excellent. Let's move on to The Fabelmans, Steven Spielberg's memoir about slightly fictional memoir about growing up. I think this is one of the best movies about making movies that's ever been made. That is my statement. I love movies about making movies. Like just something I
Tim, that's horrible of you.
I can't be in this. I didn't see it. I'm so sorry.
You're really killing me.
Lisa.
Lisa hates movies. That's her new podcast.
Lisa
I hate
hates
movies.
I've really been
Like
slipping.
you can never get down to like Jeff's level, but you're gonna start coming close to Tim.
I planned on it, and somehow the Oscars came and went, and here we are recording it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't get to
Even
see it.
2
but I
days
planned on
later.
it. I know. No
And
excuse.
it's good too. It's not even like we're talking about Triangle of Sadness over here. Like this is
Right.
Which is great. How dare you?
Yeah.
I guess I was worried that it would be bad, and I'm really happy to hear
Okay.
that, like, people are saying it's good.
So let me start. I will probably never go into a Steven Spielberg movie saying it's I'm afraid that it's going to be bad. I did
Sure.
go into this Steven Spielberg movie was like it was Spielberg, so I was going to watch it. But I kept going into it going, I don't know if it's going to be as good because I don't know of a way to make this story interesting. Like we've never heard anything bad about Steven Spielberg's upbringing or anything really interesting at all. That being said, I thought that this was just a really good family drama that actually had a couple points where it was like, all right, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. But even then, just like him, the support that he got from his parents, was there. His family are all kind of characters on their own, and I think Michelle Williams does such a good job playing his mother. Like I've never been too high on Michelle Williams, and that's from a biased point of view because I've never liked her character in Dawson's Creek, so it's always kind of carried over. But I thought she does, like, this might be my favorite performance of hers.
That's crazy.
It's crazy good. Actually, I don't know if any of you watched the Colbert interview with Spielberg. Just last week, I think he did. Him and John Williams interviewed them together.
I'll have to look it up.
It was great, but there's a bit in there where Colbert's like, was it difficult, like, making a movie about yourself, like, this movie about your parents? And he said, I prepped everybody really early. He's like, I'm a professional, like, like you're playing like Paul Dano, you're playing my mom, Michelle Williams, you're playing my mom, Paul Dano, you're playing my dad, like.
All right, I thought I watched the wrong movie.
No, I heard the words come out of my mouth, and I'm like, nope, I'll correct that. I'm going to loop back to that. And it's okay. We're going to like explore, these them as characters and whatever else. And he had never seen them together dressed in costume, except like on the first day of shooting one of their scenes, and he like turns around and they're both there. And he said, and there are my mom and dad just staring at me. And I burst into tears. Me, the professional, he said, and they came over and hugged me and told me it was going to be okay. And like all this stuff. And he's like, and that was the only time, but like, it was a lot harder than like I thought it was going to be, because it's his parents, and a lot of what is in that movie is true. Like it's really what happened. Like
I'm not gonna spoil.
I don't want to spoil it.
The ending, because it is my favorite scene, and it is the surprise is the best part.
Also true.
Yeah, I can't believe E.T. was actually a real alien.
It's based on a real true story. But the final scene that he has with a certain actor that is not advertised so much in the trailers. The final scene happened verbatim. That's what Spielberg said in an interview. He was like, no, that's literally how it went. And then I left. And
that's
I was
amazing.
like, whoa, that's crazy.
So I believe I saw this movie before you, Tim.
I think so. Yes, you did, because you texted me early.
We started it the same day.
Yeah, because you texted me about the tornado.
But I kept watching it.
Yeah.
Right. So I was thrilled that Judd Hirsch got nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I know there's always that weird, like, well, how much of it do they have to be in the film to be nominated?
Yeah, he's like in it 2 minutes or something.
Yeah, I really love Judd Hirsch in this movie. But when I got to the end, I was like, might have just watched the winner for Best Supporting Actor, and only because, like, to me, that was like the type of thing that they would huck a Oscar from the back of the room at, because of, like, it's unexpected, it's real life, it's about movies, it's a famous director,
right,
in two respects. But so I was actually kind of surprised that didn't get a little bit of award buzz. I'm happy that it was given to Judd Hirsch instead. But you're right, like, that ending is so well done.
That's my favorite scene.
And it was a perfect place to cut the movie.
That scene, like, and the scene where he, like, doesn't have a projector wall or whatever. He doesn't have, like, a thing to watch his movies on, so he uses his hands.
I love it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing scene. But I do have some slight issues with the movie. They're just, what, for me at least, I just had an issue kind of fully investing in the journey the movie was taking me on. Like, sometimes it just felt like, can we get to the next scene? I don't know why. That was just my feeling on it. And also, Michelle Williams didn't really work for me. I know that's one of your favorite performances, Palmer. I'm sorry, but, like,
I mean, it's a low bar, but
she's amazing in Brokeback Mountain. So I don't know, dude.
I would have to go back and really,
I forgot about
her
that.
list of movies.
Yeah.
She's so good,
well, that's what she won. She originally won for, correct?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
I always remember Anne Hathaway, but I never remember that Michelle Williams is the other woman in that movie.
Yeah.
That was back when Anne Hathaway was, like, really, really trying hard to shed her
Disney
Princess Diary image.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which, how dare she? By the way, those movies are, well, at least
magical.
one of them.
No. I'm not saying she, like, looks down on them. I'm saying, like, she wanted to keep going as an actor. So, she did Havoc, Brokeback Mountain.
Les Mis got her the Oscar, though, right?
Les Mis got her the Oscar.
Yeah, she was already in the actress zone. By the time she reached Devil Wears Prada, she was no longer the Disney princess.
She was an actor. Yeah.
Because like, she really went in an opposite direction, which I applaud her for. Because I always thought, like, she was a really good actress, and it would have been sad to see her just, like, pigeonholed. Although if she kept, like, grinding out those movies, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But I will say the one thing to this day, I don't care if it's based on a true story. It just baffles me, the scene of, like, his mom being like, "All right, kids, everyone get into the car. We're going to go chase this tornado."
That was so insane to me. Like, and that's true. Like, the fact that it happened doesn't mean it needed to be in the movie, because it just kind of didn't add up to me. Like, I feel like his mom was dealing with a lot of undiagnosed things that by today's standards we'd be able to diagnose properly and get her some help or something, because she was clearly going through something. And, at least in the movie, the portrayal in the movie.
Yeah. And her character, I think, is is what really made me love this movie. Like, because seeing how he starts and, making these movies younger and growing up, and kind of the scale of the movie that he does grows up with him is all fun and nice to see.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say from the second you see his mother. From early on, that there's something there that is gonna pay off in the movie, as far as what's kind of going on with her. And it does, and it's just nice to see a gradual progression of something that I was like, I think there's something there.
Yeah.
But I want to see where this goes.
There are, I mean, I'll admit there are many scenes that I really, really liked in this movie. It's just the pacing on the whole, I was just kind of, maybe it was a mood I was into. I think I need to rewatch it, honestly. But also the scene where he makes a meta joke about making a movie. I think it was after he showed the high school his movie. That was perfect. That got a big laugh out of the theater that I was in. That was great. There's many scenes that I like. The ingenuity where they're filming the war scene, and it's somebody stepping on a board to pick up sand to emulate an explosion. That was brilliant too. Like, it's just certain things. It's like, these people are born to be directors, man.
Yeah.
I could never think of that.
Everyone laying down. All right, once he gets here, everyone get up and run forward, and then lay back down.
Yeah. So some of it's really cool, man.
I just see him doing that on, like, Saving Private Ryan. Like, all right, guys, when I was 10, we did this war picture, and this is what we did to save budget.
Right.
I truthfully, I think the last shot in the movie is partly really what makes it so. Like, don't forget your horizon line, and
also,
it just becomes so meta in that one moment, and it's just like to remind you it's a memoir, and it's just really, really special.
I do love that. The final frame and the music cue during that point is very unlike John Williams, because I had somebody play me just that cue, and it was a part of a quiz or whatever. It was and he was like, okay, guess what the movie is. It's a 2022 movie. Guess what it is. Could not pinpoint that it was a John Williams cue at all, because it's so cartoony and like, but it's like so out there, but it's such a great cue because it's so unexpected.
Yep, I agree. Let's move on since Lisa hasn't seen this one. Let's go to Tar. I spoke about this at our recap show, so I won't rehash too much here. I freaking loved Tar. I think that her performance was unbelievable. I love the perspective that the movie takes as from her, and and like whether you trust her or don't trust her, because she's the only point of view character that you really get. I just found it truly an excellent movie. I absolutely understand why she didn't win Best Actress, but I do think that she deserves all of the accolades. And I also understand why I didn't win cinematography, but I do think that it is there's something really powerful about the way that it's shot, and I love it very much. Who wants to go? Not Palmer.
Go ahead,
He's
Jeff.
on his phone.
Go
Jeff,
ahead.
go ahead.
Me? Oh, all right. Tar. There's an accent over the A. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Just Tar.
But
so,
just Tar. It's just Tar, but with like a pretentious thing over the A. Don't worry about it.
Much like the movie.
How dare you? It is deliberately pretentious, though. It is.
Yeah.
It is nom-nomming on its pretentiousness.
I'm not saying it's not, but
it's
it
a
was.
satire, basically. Yeah. This, I think 4 of the Best Picture nominees are ones that I walked away from going, I think I liked it. And then the more I thought about it, the more I loved it. So like Banshees was one of those. Obviously the Best Picture winner is one of those. And Tar is one of them, and we'll get to another one. I love so much Tar. Like, I just love discovering new things about it the more I read and watch movies or watch YouTube videos about it. It's just, there's so much to dissect here. Like there's so much in terms of it being like a psychological thriller, or you can just view it as just a standard drama about a conductor who falls out of favor with, whatever, her masses or whatever, people that idolize her. And yeah, Cate Blanchett's freaking outstanding. Of course she is, because she's Cate Blanchett. But also, when you watch the movie, you don't really think that's why. I think that's just one of her qualities as an actor. Mm-hmm. Like it's just, she inhabits the role so completely that you're like, I don't even know who Cate Blanchett is. Like I see Lydia Tarr right there on the screen. She's amazing. So yeah, I would not have batted an eye if I used it correctly this time. I would not have batted an eye if she won the Oscar instead of Michelle Yeoh. Either way, for me, I was like happy, pretty much. But yeah, there's just a lot to chew on. I highly recommend, if people did see it and are listening to this, to just go watch some analysis videos, because they're, especially the scene that's like, there's a lot of long takes in it, but the scene that I think that is talked about a lot is a scene with her and a student.
The Juilliard scene. Yeah.
The one inside the classroom.
Yeah, the lecture scene.
Where it's just all one shot.
I think it is all one shot, right?
It is.
I thought at one point the camera shoots from the back, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, it is all one take. Designed with
even more impressive.
Cuts. Yeah.
But it's just, I've watched so many videos on that scene alone, and there are many different takes from it. And that's the mark to me of a great movie, is that there's no one specific message you can take from it, really. Like, I mean, there can be, I guess, if you ask the director and he flat out tells you, but normally artists don't do that. They just go, it's open for interpretation. You figure it out. But I just love that there's so many different perspectives that you can take away from this movie. It's awesome, dude. This script blew my mind.
Yeah, it was my favorite movie of the year. And
I listened to that episode
Yeah.
and I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah, it may not be the most fun I had at the movies, but it is.
Oh, no, yeah.
Like you said, there's a couple that just like a couple of these Best Picture noms just kind of linger with you in a good way or in a bad way. But this one lingered with me, and it just like it still hasn't left my head weeks and weeks later.
Yeah.
And so, Lisa.
I think this movie answers the question. You know, a lot of times people are like, oh, I feel like, oh, I don't know if it's too much of a spoiler if I say this. Is it okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I feel like people fret about the Me Too movement and, oh, you know, what if a woman did that? And I feel like this movie answers that pretty well. I think that they would be not, I think they would have a harder time coming back from a scandal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you know, they wouldn't be winning Emmys and selling out places and things like that. I mean, I think this movie does a good job of like going, it would be different for that person, but also how it's the same in that when the power dynamics are so incredibly uneven, it allows for things like this to happen. And I feel like in the very beginning, when she has that scene with that student and when she's going on this monologue, like defending somebody who is very problematic in their private life, I automatically went, oh no, I know what this movie's about now. And she's going to do these things. And there's this sort of like permission she feels like she has, or people in power sometimes feel like they have, because they're such geniuses or because they're so rich. They just believe their hype so much that they're like, okay, now I'm allowed to do whatever I want. And all that matters is the great stuff I create. And then they learn quickly that she learns quickly that that's not the case.
Yeah.
And she's brought back down really small.
This movie.
Yeah. The end of the movie, you're like, wow, you know, how far she's fallen because of her choices.
Interesting, not to divert too far, but isn't it interesting the scene where she goes to a massage parlor?
Oh,
later
very
on,
interesting.
How once she is given the power to do what she wants on a silver platter, she can't handle it. Isn't that interesting?
I read it differently.
So fascinating. Really?
I read when she gets taken to that room and they're like, pick someone and they're all looking at her. To me, it reminded me of the orchestra and how in some ways she was doing that. She was literally picking whoever she wanted.
That's a great read too. So,
elevating whoever she wanted and then having a relationship with that person. And it was a big abuse of power. And
you're
so
right, because they're all in a group.
Different.
They're all in a group in kind of the shape that an orchestra would be sitting in. But obviously it's a lot less people, but yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And they don't have a lot of choice because the position that those people are in, it's obvious that they're
So you think that's
workers.
when she finally recognized the power that she actually wielded?
I think it made her sick to her stomach to realize what she had done.
Gotcha.
That she had literally, I mean, she was doing that exact thing. She was like, yes, the women that she was picking were talented, but they were very young.
Mm-hmm.
They were beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she was even passing over other more tenured, skillful people.
Yeah.
Pretty much based on how they looked and how they made her feel. Even her wife was a transactional relationship.
Very much so.
Everybody in her life like served her. And so when she was in a situation with like literal sex workers, she was like, oh, I like bi people. I don't have relationships.
Yeah. Okay. That's a much better read.
I don't know. That's how I saw it.
The dude's read on it. But
You're
it's
just
way better
making this movie even better for me. Like that's just
I feel like
if
it was a man, we'd all be like, that's blasé by now. We know that men in power do this. So I think doing it with a female character.
That's why it's so important.
Made it more refreshing.
Movie.
Yeah,
absolutely. There was something else I wanted to add on top of what we were just talking about, and I can't remember what. Oh, I wanted to mention the Portrait of a Lady on Fire actress who was in this movie. She's awesome, dude. Like, she's incredible. Wow. I think she was like her assistant or something in the movie. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how to say her name. Like
that
Naomi.
Disappears.
Yeah. She keeps asking her for like a promotion or something. It's like, maybe I can finally lead my own orchestra or something.
Yeah.
She's awesome. Like, yeah.
Because that's how they bought their positions with silence. I mean,
yeah.
and then, the people that she looked up to, I feel like they did the same, and they even have those awkward conversations or like, back in my day, this or that happened, but it wasn't a big deal. It's like it was a pattern of people in that position doing that,
Man, it really is a hard movie to spoil because
I know. I'm sorry, y'all. It's good though.
No, and I mean that in a sense that you can talk freely about spoilers for this movie, and it doesn't really ruin anything. I mean, it's just that kind of movie for me because there's just so much to take away from actually seeing it play out.
Yep.
Like the cinematography is so important to adding like the context what we're saying.
And it was a thriller, but I feel like we're on the side of the villain, which was kind of interesting too.
Yeah,
because she says everything so well, and I think those two scenes at the beginning of the interview and then the classroom, I think like they even if you like you're on her side, even when like you say like, oh, I see what this movie is now, like I see what like she's going to do, like her points are so well thought and classified and put together that you're like, and she's like, oh, I'm doing Mahler's Fifth because it's about love, it's about this, and so like she brings you into the world that she thinks she lives in, and then you realize, and then like you're simultaneously having like an out of body experience watching her, like being with her and turning against her yourself, but then also like watching it on the outside as she discovers that herself with the sex workers and scenes, like you said.
That former protege of hers that I think she kills herself before the movie. Is that right? Before
yes, because that's one of the
she's haunting her the entire movie. Like really, like you can kind of argue that much of it could be taking place in her head.
So
agreed.
A good story or good characters, like they always have like four things, right? It's like the need, the need or the want, the need, the lies, and the ghost. Those are the four things that drive characters. The thing a character wants, the thing a character needs, even though they don't know that they need that thing. Like they think they want this, but they actually need something else. The lies they tell themselves about the world, and the ghost that haunts them. And that is this movie in a nutshell.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You reminded me of Whiplash a little bit.
Yeah. It's like a more chill Whiplash. Yeah.
Yeah. Whiplash was so good. The second it ended, I was
movie,
like,
dude.
I'm going to watch that again right now.
I remember seeing it. I took a friend to see it again because I loved it so much.
Yeah.
I took him to see it like the week after I saw it because I loved the ending so much, and I knew that when it ended, he would go, woo! And he did. Sure enough, like because the ending is just one of the best movie endings to me of all time.
It's amazing. Palmer, you
not that it's feel good. It's just there's a lot.
Palmer, you had something about Tar and Whiplash, didn't you?
When I was watching it, I sent Tim a text that legitimately said, I've already seen this movie and it was done better, and it was called Whiplash.
I won't argue that Whiplash was better because I love that movie, but it is a different type of movie.
And
very.
So all right. Cate Blanchett, I feel kind of always gives like, and you can say she's really good, and I'm not going to really argue. I just, in my mind, I feel like she's always kind of the same kind of colder character, and she plays it well. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that she's not a really good actor. And you're right. The scene in Juilliard I thought was easily probably the best scene of the movie.
Yeah. But at least for me, yes.
Yeah. But for me, one, Tim mentioned like, at times she's kind of pulling you in to see her side and her argument. And I feel like she's trying to do it at times, but nothing that the movie gives me ever makes me want to be on her side or even look at things from her point of view. That she's just, it's very obvious kind of from the beginning. She's not a good person. She's not likable almost in the least bit. Like, I think there's a very short point of time when it's the inside the actor's studio segment at the beginning,
right,
where you're like, all right, let's see how she is. But I think there's just too many times where I feel like this movie does stuff for the sake of padding out a runtime, like her chasing her new protege through this run-down, burnt-out, abandoned place.
That's kind of one of the scenes I'm talking about where did that really happen? That's kind of one of the scenes that I'm talking about.
I thought that was not really happening and like a nightmare or something.
Well, she had a very real injury from it.
She did, but she also, kind of like her wife, I think, abused pills. I mean, they show her with them a lot in the movie, so we don't really know it happened.
Yeah.
And there's somebody leaving stuff around her apartment. There's a lot to dissect in this movie for sure.
You know, and it was fine. Like, you can, if you want to take the argument, like, did some of this stuff not actually happen to her? Like, are we really just watching like a psychosis in her head kind of play out, and every so often we see like bits and pieces of the outside world shine through? Okay, but I don't feel like the movie makes it clear enough to work for me. I don't need things spelt out specifically, but I think you need to do a better job of letting me know like where you want my headspace to be at. You're already on the wrong foot by doing this movie where really most of the characters are not good. Like, they all have ulterior motives, except for the people like she abuses. Like, yeah, they have their motives of wanting to move up in their chosen profession, and they kind of succumb to her whims to do it, which I feel bad for them that they're being taken advantage of like that. So, but I don't need a movie where I really dislike the characters, aside from a very select few, and then have to deduce like what is actually real and what is in her head.
So you don't like
I
Hamlet,
just don't have
what
time
you
for
just
this.
said to me. You also don't. So you don't like Hamlet is also what you just said to me.
Yeah,
depending upon the version of Hamlet, yeah.
I think that a lot of it is we're not sure if it happened or not because she's a very unreliable narrator. I mean, she thinks she's an awesome person
because she's a
clearly
woman.
Not.
Is that why, Lisa?
Huh?
Is she an unreliable narrator because she is a woman? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Lisa said it, everybody. It's Lisa.
I said it, guys. Cancel me. No, I feel like, I think that she's extremely unreliable because she's a megalomaniac. I mean, she's obsessed with herself and unable to see all the real harm she's doing.
And she keeps seeing the ghost of that redhead, too. It's automatically from the very beginning, which you don't know until you really have to kind of either see the movie again or kind of figure it out as you're watching the movie that, that's not real. That's not happening.
Yeah.
For real,
the Hamlet comparison is spot on. I mean, it's like she's being haunted by her own mistakes and she tries to avoid it the whole movie, tries to cover it up, tries to delete the evidence. But at the end of the day, she did those things and she made that happen. And I think, I don't know, I thought the movie was really effective for that. I don't think you have to like the main character of a movie for it to be effective. I never really liked her, but I think it is kind of frightening at points when she brings up compelling arguments and you are almost on her side. It's like, that is kind of scary. And it is probably true to life that, the people you think are the worst, like may not be, I mean, we're all multifaceted people. So it's like, it's complicated. And the people under her, I mean, I don't know. I felt like that happens a lot where people are in a situation where it's their entire career on the line and not everybody is going to be 100% good all the time in that situation. They're under a lot of pressure.
Right.
So I don't know.
I'm just saying like this had like maybe one or two many things that I dislike in movies that were just all in one.
Yeah.
Like out of say like 5 things like I really don't like to see in movies or that really can take me out of a movie, this had say 3 or 4. Like I can deal with 1 or 2, but this had more than I can.
And
hold on, listen folks, I'm going to interject because we still have 3 movies to get through and we're veering in on 2 hours here and
all right.
I'm tired. So let's move on to Top Gun Maverick. movie that saved movies. I loved it. The world loved it. Is it a Best Picture?
Movies?
I don't know. Maybe. Is it just a really well-made movie? It sure is. But
top-notch popcorn blockbuster.
It is a top-notch popcorn blockbuster. Exactly. Yeah. But is it a Best Picture? Not really. But I'm glad that it's on here, truthfully, because I think it deserves the accolades that it's getting. But I don't think anybody, apart from being nominated for Best Picture, is really pretending that it is any more than what it is. Like, it's just a good movie.
So it was in my top 10 for the year.
Yeah, it was in my top 5.
Yeah, because I really enjoyed it. That being said, I would not have nominated it for Best Picture.
Me neither.
Because it was just the first movie over again. Like, it was fine.
I disagree. It was definitely not the first movie over again. It's way better.
Oh, you're right.
I didn't feel that way either.
You're right.
But...
This time around, they played football and not volleyball.
There you go.
Right.
See?
Sorry, it was completely different.
America's pastime. Thank you very much. Yeah.
But that being said, but I talked about it before. I really liked it. I do like Tom Cruise. I really love Jennifer Connelly in this.
Yes.
It's shot really well.
You guys keep talking. I got to get more water. Go ahead.
All right.
Bye. And this is the guy that's like, come on, guys, we got to wrap it up. And he's off getting water.
How dare he hydrate?
I know. So, do I like this more than the first movie? Probably.
I definitely do. Yeah, because I didn't love the first one. So,
but I just, you know what? It's never gonna not be a knock on the movie. Miles Teller.
Oh man,
I don't know what he's done in this life except be born, but I hate him so much.
I remember scrolling through a TikTok feed and he showed up in there because I think his wife or girlfriend, life partner, whoever, is like an influencer. And so she made a video with him and all the comments were like, Miles Teller, really? Like, it was just so funny. Like, everybody's just kind of tired of this guy existing for no real actual reason. Like, it's just like, I don't know.
What it is? It's, you know how like people always say like some women have the resting bee face. He has that as a guy.
Dudes, yeah.
Like what?
Resting
like
he
has resting punch me in the face. I don't know. He just seems like slimy. I don't know. It's
that
weird.
Being said, I thought he was great, and we mentioned Whiplash. I thought he was great in that, and I thought he was great in this. I liked his rapport.
I think he tries to be
with
too
Tom
much
Cruise.
of Anthony Edwards in this.
Yeah, I think he was directed to be that way. Honestly, I think it worked though. In my opinion, I thought. It worked.
But really, I think the characters around Maverick in this I like more than the original. Aside from Val Kilmer, I really love Val Kilmer as an actor. I'm glad they were able to find a way with his health situation to get him into this movie.
Yeah, that was so great.
Yeah,
I really like that scene.
It really, because you didn't have Tom Skerritt, so I think you really need that character.
Mm-hmm.
But it was done really well.
I agree, and the fact that it got totally snubbed for cinematography before the nominations were announced. Because I pay attention to like the odds and the predictions from experts, quote unquote. Every single one of them had Top Gun Maverick as the winner for best cinematography. So the fact that it got completely stubbed reminds me of those times where that happened. Like, I think it happened last year or whatever year that Won't You Be My Neighbor came out, that Mr. Rogers documentary. And everybody was like, oh, this is going to win. And then it didn't get nominated. I think it's because voters get like comfortable with the idea that, oh, clearly somebody else is going to vote for this. I'm going to vote for my darling. So they just forget to vote for the one that should, in my opinion, win. But yeah, the cinematography is unreal. Obviously, there's been so many articles and videos about how they shot this stuff for real when they could, and that made it all the more a better theatrical experience. I did see it at home on my TV, and obviously it wasn't the same, but it was still just as riveting. It's one of those movies that, unlike Tar, where I want to talk about its meanings and all that stuff after the fact, it's one of those movies that you just love in the moment that you're watching it, and then you're like, yeah, that was great, man. I loved it. I loved that high that I was on. And then when you're gone from it, it's like, okay, can we talk about something else now?
Yeah, which is fine. I think what I like about it being nominated is that there's room for both in the Academy.
Yeah, this and Avatar, I was very happy that I got nominated.
Yeah,
because,
not every movie has to be.
I feel like people would have tuned in because of that.
High art.
Yeah, I'm not a fan when people say things like, "Oh, you picked a popcorn movie," or like this shouldn't be. It's like movies can be feel good and enjoyable.
Yeah.
And be nominated. We love movies, right?
Yeah.
That's why we're here. So yeah, agreed.
It's why you're here.
I haven't seen it yet, and it's my husband's fault. He hasn't seen the first Top
jerk.
Gun, so he keeps going like, "Oh, we have to watch that one first," and then we never watch it, and so I still haven't gotten a chance. I think I was gonna just see it without him, but I didn't want him to get mad at me. So
I understand that life. Like I understand you.
When your husband hasn't seen a movie yet?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, he's not interested in Top Gun at all, but then he's like, "Well, I got to see the first one."
Well, yeah, if he
it's not. I mean,
but you've never wanted to see Top Gun till now.
It's not like Fast and the Furious. It doesn't have a deep storyline that you need to watch 9 other movies.
You can just be like, "Here's what you need to know."
It tells you
Anthony Edwards'
everything
character's
you need
name
to
is
know.
Goose, and he dies in the first movie. And play.
I
That's
hadn't
it.
seen the
all you
first
need
one
to know.
since I was 10, and I watched this one like,
Right.
oh yeah, right, Goose. All right, I'm good. I made it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's all you need
it's
to know
not
is the Goose thing.
complicated,
That's
but
it.
I'm
Yeah.
respecting his.
I will
wishes.
say, as a fun fact, Top Gun is one of the less than 10 movies that every time there's been a new media format, I own it on that format.
Me too. I don't know what
I
it is.
did not know
Tape,
that. Interesting.
Tape, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, HD DVD, Blu-ray 3D, like every time it's come out, because for the longest time, we would use that movie when we were setting up a new sound system in my house.
Oh,
Just because of the beginning with the music and the planes.
yeah.
It was just a really good test for sound systems.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I've also watched that movie countless times because of that.
Mhm.
But yeah.
It's a sweaty movie. I like it.
Yep.
All right, let's
And
move
they
on.
and they carried the sweatiness over to the second one.
Move
Love
on
that.
to Triangle of Sadness.
And now let's move on to the next movie.
Yeah, seriously, I didn't see this one.
Okay.
So there's only like a couple that I didn't see. I'm sorry. There's so many.
That's
of
okay.
them.
That's all right. When I realized when I finally figured out this movie was a parody, about 20 minutes into the to the diarrhea and barfing scene, I was like, oh, right on. All right, I figured out what you're doing now. Like it just took me a little while to get there, and I actually really liked the third act of this movie a lot. But it was a movie that I saw.
This is one that the more distance I got from it and the more conversations I had with friends that saw it, the more I loved it. My friend was pointing out parallels about the conversations about gender dynamics, which was coming from a very inauthentic place when the guy was like telling the girl, hey, you need to pay for dinner because you said you would, and this would be our dynamic in a relationship. We need to pay for each other equally and blah, blah, blah. He was coming at it from a place of, I make less money because I'm a male model, and you make more money because you're way more attractive to me and you're a woman or whatever in that industry. So they were having this debate about gender dynamics. And then the third act is pretty much the gender dynamics conversation they had in practice, which I'd never noticed the first time I watched it until I
didn't get that until you just said that. That makes a lot of sense.
I was like, holy crap, that's really interesting.
That's what happens when you watch a movie in parts. You forget things. Yeah.
The boat part felt like a sitcom in the middle of a movie. Like, it was just so ridiculous. Like, the people that were arms dealers that suddenly got like a grenade thrown at them and they were like, oh, look at that, it's one of ours. They were just so like lackadaisical about it. It was so ridiculous. Like, I ended up enjoying it later on. When I first got out of the movie, I was like, where's the ending? And I got mad. But I just had to kind of sleep on it a little bit.
It's one of those, like, I'm not upset that I saw it. I didn't feel like I wasted my time. But I just it wasn't cohesive enough for me. Like,
that's fair. That's totally fair. And it's long too. It's another long one.
It's long for the story it's telling. Like, we spent an obscene amount of time on that yacht.
Oh my God,
and it's just an unnecessary for the story that it's telling. Like, it made its point in each act earlier than the time frame allotted.
I feel like the writer-director Ruben Östlund had his heart set on the socialist captain debating the capitalist Russian or whatever.
Yep.
He was dead set on keeping that scene in the movie, and that's why it was long as it was. Because you really could have taken out, because the captain is nowhere to be found in the third act. Nope. So you really could have taken out that entire thing. Even though it's Woody Harrelson and he's great, you really could have taken it out and trimmed a lot of fat.
Yep, I agree.
I still love the movie, though. I'm sorry. Sorry, Palmer. I know it's like your least favorite. So,
I mean, you can easily trim out the entire movie. Look, no, I didn't like this movie at all. And let's be real, like, they need to stop nominating 10 movies. I understand why we initially went to 10 movies, and then we dialed it back. We're like, it doesn't need to be 10 movies anymore, yet we're still nominating 10.
I think we should still do 10. I'm going to be honest.
I'd be happy with 8.
Really?
I'd be happy with 7 to 8.
I like that it can be between 5 and 10, but not every year has to be 10, because this year clearly shows that there's some bloat there. And
I disagree.
And given the fact,
this
like,
is a year I don't think that there's a lot of bloat.
There's
I
at
disagree.
least 3 movies worth of bloat.
I can safely say I liked or loved every single movie that was nominated. Like, really liked or genuinely loved wholeheartedly.
And that's fine, but should it have gotten nominated? Like we said with Maverick.
Not over, like, there was one that got snubbed that I was so certain. I thought Babylon was going to get in there.
Yeah, Babylon.
I would have put Babylon in there for sure.
Babylon over Triangle of Sadness. Same type of gross out humor, much better movie.
I love them both, but Babylon I do love quite a bit more. Yes.
I remember when I saw the first trailer for Triangle of Sadness, and its entire marketing campaign was, look, rich people throwing up. And I'm like, oh, God, this is going to be an insufferable movie. And it was.
Well, it was more of a kind of like Glass Onion, which was another one I thought was going to get nominated, or was hoping was going to get nominated for Best Picture. It's another F the rich type theme, and I'm totally on board with those. Let's keep doing it.
I'm fine with it as long as it's not, as long as it doesn't come off as preachy as it does, because then I think you're doing your movie a disservice.
That's fair. Anyway, we can. Sorry.
Yeah, since Lisa didn't watch it, let's move on. We have 2 left. Women Talking. This is the last one that I watched out of this whole lineup. I really enjoyed it.
Same here. It came out last for theatrical run, so yeah, same here.
I really liked it. It advertised exactly what it is. Women talking.
Yes.
It needed more of it.
Women and a guy talking.
Yes.
Yeah, that guy should
I was actually surprised. Ben Winshaw was like, and Ben Winshaw will be taking notes. I was like, oh, yeah, that guy. Ben Winshaw. Yeah.
That poor guy.
That dude talked that character specifically. The actor was great, but the character talked in circles sometimes in an annoying way.
Yes, very annoying.
Where he was like where they at a certain point halfway through, or a little more over halfway through, they finally asked him what he thought. Not that it matters. But they asked him what he thought, and he said they should stay and leave at the same time.
I thought that was on purpose, and here's why. Because he's technically the representative of all the men in that community.
Not all men. I'm just kidding. Sorry, I had to make that joke.
That's true.
Problematic this episode. What's going on?
No. She's fine, because Ben Winshaw is definitely the best man in that entire colony.
Of course.
Right. But so, like, because he's
basically not from there.
But he is. Let me say my thing so I don't forget it. He is like, it's a patriarchy. He is the male in that meeting, and he's taking a backseat. He's taking their notes, whatever. But because it's a patriarchy, like, and the way that it's run, the women have assumed for all this time that the men have it right, and they have the answers, and they have this and like all this stuff. And so when the man gets to actually speak at this meeting where they are debating real things in a really good like way that progresses like with real philosophical and logical thought, he comes in and just talks in circles, which is representative of how their entire community is run in a giant circle, right? And so like he is like showcasing how they are correct and how like the patriarchy in this case for this community, is not correct.
They just realize he's an idiot, is what it is. Like,
well, and his like inability to act. It's like they can all agree that these horrible acts committed on these women were awful, and yet it still can't move the needle at all.
Well, and that just tells
like, he's like, yeah, that's terrible, but it's like
something about the foundation of the colony and something like that, and what it would do to families and stuff. I was like, bro, wrong side, bro. Like, it was just interesting.
But he still were two sides, and you were on the wrong one.
He still found a way to break my heart by the end of the movie, because he does have a very vulnerable scene at the end that was like, no, like, oh no. But the movie does have really. It's kind of similar to how I feel about The Fabelmans, where it's like when it's great, it sings, it's amazing. But there are definitely some pacing things that was like, it didn't keep me gripped the whole time.
I agree that it could, for the story or for what it's doing, it definitely could have moved along at a faster clip.
Even though it's like a 90-minute movie, but absolutely.
It's a little bit longer than that, I thought. But
it felt really short to me for some reason.
90. That's what I mean. Like it was
compared to other movies this year.
105, but it could have been 90.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it was done really well and all that, but I think I'm a little bit, I don't know how to say this without sounding bad.
Say it.
I think that there's lots of feminist issues, and I feel like sometimes we only cover one or two of them over and over.
That is true.
While they're very important and very serious, sometimes I almost feel like something is lost when we keep going over them. Like, there's so many other issues to talk about.
War is wrong. Right?
Yeah.
It's
right,
the
like
same.
war is wrong.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, you go back to this particular type of event to make a point about it, but that point is the same point that A, B, C, and D have already made. You're just seeing it in a different format,
and it's almost becomes like, I don't know, kind of like Handmaid's Tale. Love the first season. We're on whatever season now, and I just can't do it anymore.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It is such a beatdown, and this movie was an emotional beatdown.
It was.
Yeah. It's exhausting, and so like I think it was done really well, but it certainly wasn't my favorite movie of the year. But I thought all the women in the movie and the man, sorry,
talked. They talked. Yeah.
I think they all did a really good job. Yeah. And so it was done very well, but I wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to watch this, because I mean, I knew what it was going to be, and it was rough.
Not an easy watch.
Yeah.
So luckily, I think, like, because I texted you, Lisa, like as I was watching this movie, like the first 10 minutes or first 15 minutes, when you get pretty much the story of why they're there talking, I think is the heaviest part of the movie, and it's hard to kind of get into the movie when like that's the start of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But luckily, I think it does a good job of, once it gets by that, it still talks about it. It still brings it up. I think it never goes back to that like really, really sick feeling that you get at the beginning of the movie. That being said, I really love this movie, and you're right. There's some great performances in it. It's shot really well. I was actually like, it's based on a true story thing. As far as like, yes, there are tons of more issues that should matter when it comes to women. But the reason these keep coming up is because these are the things that are also still very prevalent in society.
Yeah.
Like, this didn't happen that long ago.
Yeah, it happened 13 years ago. Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of like, the thing that happened with Sandusky, and like I watched a documentary about that, and people in that town where this horrible thing happened and a bunch of children were abused, the entire town was like, but look what it did to our town. Like, look what like this did to our town. Look what this did to football.
Yeah, they're still like,
and you're
that.
like, are you insane? These are your people, like your
children.
These are your children.
Yeah, your friends, and you don't care. You're just worried about football. What? And it's
America's
just
pastime,
It's just like, it's just like this movie where it's like, it doesn't matter how horrible things are. When there's a status quo, people are like, well,
I do
Everything's
think
got to stay the same.
Yeah.
I do think the one difference in this movie is, like, it's not just like people agreeing that this is bad. Like, they're having a vote as to what to do, and they're voting on like three things, two of which sound reasonable, and one that you don't understand why somebody would vote for it. You know, they're voting to either stay there and fight, stay there and do nothing, or leave. And there are people actually arguing to just staying there and doing nothing, which is like baffling. And like, that's like, to me, that's the hardest part of, to hear the argument, to even try and make it sound remotely like it's a good idea, and to still make it interesting enough to be the crux of this movie. And I think it does a wonderful, deft job with that. My only real complaint about this movie is the character of Melvin. I'm glad that they viewed Melvin as a man, because in the movie they are trans, you know, because of what happened to them. Like, that's like, they, not because of what happened to them, but they went down a different path after stuff happened to them, and they're still there. Like, that person got left behind, which seems weird to me. And I don't know if that person was, I think that person was just for the movie. I don't think it was based on a real character. But that
person would be in so much danger. That would be such a bad idea.
Exactly. For one, because of the Mennonite faith to begin with. You know, that was one of like the IMDb trivia things. They were like, yeah, it's nice that they called him Melvin, but in a Mennonite community, that's not flying. So like, they're in real danger, especially now that the rest of the women are gone.
They should have changed the title to Turfs Talking. I'm terrible. I'm the worst.
Yep, that's it. But I thought this movie was great. I've loved Sarah Polley ever since Go. And I know she's not in the movie. She's the writer and she's the director of it. But I've kind of kept up with her career since Go, and I'm really happy she got the award for it. She's never really done a lot of like award bait movies.
Yeah. And
I would argue, like, on the surface, and you'll have people argue that this is strictly a award bait movie. But like she said in her acceptance speech, you know, she was really happy that Hollywood didn't hold it against her that the words women and talking were so close together. Which I thought that was just such a great acceptance speech.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so finally
it was good. I did.
Well, go ahead.
One last thing I want to say: I didn't think about the trans person being left behind. I guess I didn't notice that in the movie.
I didn't notice it either. Yeah.
That is a huge miss on that movie.
Yeah, the only
what?
Like, I remember at the end, like, they're all like, "Bye, Melvin. Bye, Melvin." I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, it seems almost like okay, you decided to tackle trans issues, and then a weird erasure at the end.
Now, they see Melvin as trans, as male. So like, and because they're not taking males with them, Melvin saves the community. No, they're taking the boys who are way younger than Melvin.
I believe it's just unfortunately ignoring a bigger issue. I feel like, I don't know. It just, to me, that is a weird way to end it. Like, I get what you're saying, Tim, but I just feel like there's also the reality of the violence that person. Oh no,
I agree with you. I agree with you, but I just like in the movie, it's like to write it in a way that's weird that like.
Well, see, the way my brain is, the way my brain's kind of equating the stuff is Melvin chose to stay. Like, that's the only way I can be okay with this.
That could be too. Yeah. I would hope they would have thought of that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, last movie.
All right, last movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, the 11 times nominated, 7 award winner of the evening. I said in our year of our what do you call it? Best of 2022. I thought this movie was overhyped. and I'm gonna ride that train still. I think I saw it way post hype, and so I think that might have been a huge part of my the way that I felt about this movie. But like when the directors accepted one of their awards, might have been their writing award, they said this conversation came about because I said, let's put my mom in the Matrix. And I said, that's what I said when I was watching the movie. I said, it's the Matrix with the multiverse. So I think like just so much of like, it's original, it's this, and this, and this. There are original parts in it for sure. But I just didn't feel that it was parts. I just didn't feel that it was as like amazingly groundbreaking as everybody said. But again, that's the hype machine. And so like I have to watch it. I have to watch it again.
It's going to be hard watching it without the hype machine.
Once it's died down.
Not really.
And I've like seen it again.
Accepting or embracing what you hear from hype is kind of on you, in my opinion. Like because I saw it like after film festivals and stuff like that, and
I saw it over.
Would not shut up about it.
I saw it over Christmas. So like when I say the hype, like it was a long.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same place Tim is in.
Yeah,
I saw it when it first made it to digital, and that was months after even like the first award ceremony, and I hadn't heard people stop talking about it since then. And I'm of the same opinion. Like it was so overhyped, and sometimes it's not a bad thing. Like if you want to give me the argument, like people really embrace this movie because of like the actors in it, and like people just really love Michelle Yeoh and Data. I can never remember his actual name.
Ke Kwan.
Okay, and then the father, Hong?
James
Hong. I couldn't remember his first name. I remembered Hong. But like, yeah, okay. Separately, I love these people. You want to really love the writers and the directors, great. I just don't think the movie coalesces for me.
I think I need to see it again. I will say that
for all of you. Yes.
I will say that his speech in the film where he talks about being kind.
Yeah.
That made me cry.
Yeah.
And I avoided the movie for a long time because I knew it was about a mother and relationships with moms. And I just was like, that's going to be rough. I feel like that's going to be rough. Especially with what had been going on in my personal life and how close I feel with my mother. But we are such opposites. And so I knew that like I would, hopefully my mom's not listening to this, but I feel like I would relate
I hope she is.
A lot. And, I did, but I didn't cry sad tears the way I thought I would, which I was grateful for. But I also felt like there was so much in my ear about what the movie is that it was hard to enjoy it without that. So I kind of agree with Tim, and even said, I was surprised I didn't love this more. But at the same time, I think it's incredibly heartwarming that this film got so many awards and that movies like this can still win so many awards when they're so positive. And I don't like the criticisms I've seen that are like, oh, this is the saccharine sweet nonsense winning. It's silly. I'm like, no, I think that movies of all types should win awards. Mm-hmm. And that just because a movie is heartfelt and happy doesn't mean it shouldn't win something. That's silly.
Coda last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Is a great example.
Like you don't have to be Schindler's List to win awards. Like,
exactly. Like there's room for both types of or different types of films.
Right.
Yeah, there's only two types: Schindler's List and this.
And Everything Everywhere All at Once.
What a spectrum!
Before we release Jeff,
I feel like I need to see it again because I didn't anticipate it winning this many awards. I'll be honest.
I didn't either, and I loved it the minute I saw it. Like it was like, oh, this is one of my favorite movies ever made. Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, cool.
So
but
before
this is for me to love.
we like release you to like convince us, to like why it deserves what it deserves. I do think it is an extraordinarily well-made movie. So like I didn't walk away from the movie going that was subpar and not well made. Like Venom 2 was better. Or whatever, you know what I mean, or whatever.
Was better.
Like that's not like what I got to. I was like, wow, Michelle Yeoh is great. Kiwa Hong was great. I didn't recognize Jamie Lee Curtis for half the movie. Like
that is crazy. How?
Yeah,
You didn't recognize her immediately?
No, I didn't. I was like,
wow.
I said, oh look, it's that woman that Michael Myers keeps trying to kill.
Yeah, like, and so like, and I thought that like the opening shot is like a bunch of circles like in the part, and I was like, I know what it's doing. Like right away, like I know where, like, you know, like it's like it's gonna, right. It's gonna be filled with motifs, and the colors are gonna mean something, and the shots are gonna mean something, and like all this different stuff. And I was right.
And the throwaway lines too, where they say something about Rakakuni, and then suddenly it's another universe. You know, like every line feeds into it, either another universe or something like that.
And like objectively, I appreciated all of that, and I think again, I would have liked it more if I wasn't bombarded with it's the best thing that's happened, you know, in a decade, you know, and so like that's just, to your point, it's a little on me to buy into that, but I think it's so hard not to buy into that, that stuff.
I guess I get the most recent, not recent, it's a long time ago, but that was Avatar 1 for me. But that was a different time. That was not really, social media wasn't as present as it is now. So
I think social media
a little
makes
different.
It hard.
I'm with probably so.
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to compare it to another movie that had so much hype around it last year, and then I saw it and I was like, oh, really? I can't think of one
Venom
though.
2.
RRR I waited a long time to see, and that movie was really great. So I can't really get mad at people for talking about it. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So I recognize why people like this movie, why they think it's really good, and why they want awards. Some of the awards I even agree with. Like and so that none of that affected me. I'm glad that it won Best Picture. Like I can recognize that its importance and the need for it and all those things. I just didn't connect with it the way that the world told me I was going to. And that,
or that you should have,
or that I should have, right?
No, there's no should when it comes to feelings on movies.
I agree,
but that's not what the whole hype machine was about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I will say I saw a film group that I'm in. Somebody, none of y'all are in this group, by the way.
Wow,
because it's really exclusive. No, you just happen not to be. So I just didn't want you to go look and go after this person.
Lisa's?
I'm not offended. I have many groups. It's fine.
Somebody made a post that was like, I was so disappointed in the Oscars and all the movies that won, they were awful, and like the Oscars have really degraded, and like I don't get why any of these movies win, and like went on, and I was like, that's horrible. Like, I mean, on some level, you have to be like, you miss when the Oscars were the same for like ever, and like the same kind of movies always won, and like that's a weird take.
But
like
also,
things change.
Like Palmer and I doing this whole project of like going back and watching all these movies, there are certainly trends, but there are a lot of surprises that crop up over the years, and so like the way that people think about the Oscars being like, oh, well, it wasn't like it used to be in this, like they have very, very little conception of what the Oscars are actually like.
It was funny. I made the same comment to Jeff when he mentioned something about this winning, and he was like, "Oh, this is like very out of the box and this and that." And I was like, "Look, the Oscars have this stereotypical thing of like only certain movies win, but go back and watch like the last 10 years worth of movies, just the past 10 years."
Yeah.
And I told Jeff like this
could be the new normal.
There's probably like 6 or 7 movies that won that I would argue probably weren't like quote unquote Oscar movies.
That's true.
In the way that people think that the Oscar movie should be.
And that's fair, because I actually ranked, Twitter was doing it.
Yeah,
it's fun to do. I ranked like all the Best Picture winners from the last 10 years. And as I was listing it, I was like, these are all great, first off. And second off, these are all so freaking different. Like there are exceptions, like Spotlight to me and Green Book feel like safe winners, even though Spotlight's a great movie. Green Book's pretty good. It's okay.
I just rewatched Green Book this weekend. I like Green Book. I put my hands up. The commentary that was out there on Green Book when it came out is really not the movie. And I said that when it came out. It's real, like the misreading of that movie, like killed
that's an example of a time where I let people kind of control the narrative I had for the movie after I saw it. which is something I had to learn how to tune out. And maybe that's why I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm like not so attuned to the hype machine as much.
I mean,
I'm
that's
like,
fair.
I'm just like, oh, that person liked it. Okay, whatever. And then I go into the movie feeling
some of that
open about what the movie's going to give me, you know?
Was going to happen to Elvis too. Like there was a lot of talk around Elvis before it came out.
Yeah.
About it being, all these problems with it. And I was kind of like, I'm just going to wait till it comes out. And then when it comes out, like, nope, all of that died down immediately. It just hadn't come out yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's so true. I didn't think about that. But anyway, this movie it's hard to not talk about. It's hard to talk about without admitting my own bias for it, because I have such a personal attachment to the movie, because it's talking about the themes in the movie about like Joy, Stephanie Shu's character. She's going through something in regards to how she feels about her own insignificance in the grander scope of the universe. And it's like, it's kind of driving her crazy a little bit, to the point where this version of her that was able to travel through all the multiverses at the same time. And so she was able to see everything, quite literally the title, Everything Ever All at Once. It wasn't enough. Like it made her feel even more insignificant. And like, that's, I have like it's weird to talk about openly, but I have like a weird existential dread and anxiety, like almost all the time. And it's gotten worse lately. And then I watched the movie again last night, and I was like, this movie sees me. Like it's just an incredibly personal experience watching this movie for me. Like I feel like I'm getting I don't know. I feel like I'm getting like the movie's identifying my issues that I have, that I struggle with, and telling me it's okay to be insignificant. Like, it's not saying, no, you're not. It's not treating you like a special child. It's not like, no, you matter. It's saying, no, it's fine to be insignificant, because obviously the universe is going to be way too large for you to comprehend everything. It's going to be impossible for you to figure all that math out. But it's about being present with the people that are in your life, that love you and that you love, and that's really ultimately the message of the movie. And the movie is really just a reminder for me, about that when I have my own struggles. So, I mean, that's my takeaway from the movie.
Right.
But then there's, on top of that, there's like the first hour or so is just really dumb, fun action. And it's good, well choreographed action.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And watching that first hour where they're like doing insane stuff deliberately to tap into another universe, and borrow a skill from another universe. That's when those are the scenes that I watch and go, this should not win Best Picture, because it's so freaking weird. Like, it's just so out there to watch people jump, butt first onto a statue or something. Like, it's just not the type of movie that I pictured winning.
During the awards,
even though I loved it
during the
so
award
much.
ceremony, I think it was Michelle Yeoh's acceptance speech. You could see her hot dog fingers like in the frame, and I just thought, just like the weirdness of that is just like will go down in one of my favorite Oscar moments, where just like the historic significance of her win.
Yeah.
Coupled with like just hot dog fingers just like creeping into the frame behind her.
To me at least, it's a thematically dense movie. Like, I identify with Joy's character, but there's a lot going on for Michelle Yeoh's character. What's her name? Evelyn, where she is like, she's wrestling with the chaos, because the movie's about chaos too. It's wrestling a lot of, it's explaining a lot of themes all at the same time, much like the title of the movie, where she is managing the chaos that comes naturally in your life by trying to be very organized about it, to where she's losing her relationships with people in her family, like her dad, and her husband and her daughters. So she has to kind of reconcile all those relationships in her own way, in the way that she can with them. So that's why to me the movie feels justified in its length and how many story beats it has. It feels like it has several endings, and that's because she's reconciling with a certain character at a certain point, and then she has to reconcile with another character at a different point. Like, it's kind of juggling a lot. But I can see that kind of being a little bit of a turnoff. If I had to guess, like, oh, there's too many endings, or a feeling of like it might be too long or something. But I don't know.
I did not get that. Truthfully, yeah, I didn't. Truthfully, it was just the hype train. Like it was just. It really wasn't anything the movie itself did. It was just.
I wish I could explain it in an objective way to where you feel wrong for not loving it, but I can't.
No,
I can't.
Actually, the way you explained your connection to the movie is the best argument I've heard you make for this movie since you started ranting about it on Twitter. It's because
it's impossible to tweet about. You can't tweet about stuff like that.
I'm joking a little bit about it, but in all honesty, like, to me, that's a better thing for this movie than anything. Because I'm not saying, like, I'll joke that I hated the movie.
I know you didn't, though.
Yeah,
it was to me. You hated The Whale, right? Like, that's a movie you hated.
I haven't seen The Whale because I just everything I know about it. I don't agree with the movie to begin with.
I'm with you.
And Darren Aronofsky has just fallen so much for me lately, ever since Mother.
Yeah.
But that being said, like, I thought the movie was totally just okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like the people in it. I'm rooting for the people that make it, so I'm happy to see Michelle Yeoh win an award.
Yeah.
I wish it was for a better, in my mind, I wish it was for a better movie.
Yeah.
There's nothing particularly bad about this movie, but the hype is it doesn't kill it. But I'm just like, I don't understand why everyone's just so in love, other than the fact of, like, you can like this movie and then just be like, I'm really pulling for everyone that was involved in this movie because I really love them as humans, which is fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say also, Ke Huy Quan's performance, Lisa mentioned his big speech about being nice and stuff like that, but he has another one in an alternate universe where Michelle Yeoh is a very famous actress. She's basically playing herself.
Gosh, yeah, that scene too.
Yeah, I would be happy in another life doing. I'm already getting chills.
I know it is
taxes and laundry with you. I just love that scene so much. Like, it just shows that Michelle Yeoh, I don't think, had to express as much range. Mm-hmm. She showed plenty of range, and I'm not upset that she won Best Actress at all, but Ke Huy Quan had to show so much range because he is literally playing different characters in the iterations that we see him in. You know, like, he's playing this suave, cool guy in that movie star universe, you know, and I buy it. I totally buy it. And then he has to be like this really cool, like, you know, like really cool, like butt kicker in when he switches in the main universe that we see in the movie, and he's believable as a fighter, like, and then he's dopey and a nerd, and like he's believable as that too. And it's just, he's got such a layered performance.
Not only
but
does he
he's
have
supportive too. He's the supporting character,
mm-hmm.
and that's a little bit of a gender swap in some ways.
True, because it was supposed to be a Jackie Chan movie, actually.
And because, you know, the male character is typically not just the supporting character. And the biggest thing he does is he supports her emotionally. That's the more effective part. And we don't see a lot of like tender male characters.
Right.
But I found that I related to his character actually the most, because I feel like I'm very much in my personal life. I always feel like, I mean, I even describe that way in like, when I describe myself and my brand is like, I like to help people
mm-hmm.
and I want to be like a positive presence. And I feel like sometimes that really gets like overshadowed or even put down. And I thought it was really touching in the movie, the way they were highlighting, like, this is like an important person to be in people's lives. It matters.
Very much so. And when she starts kind of handling things the way that Waymond, her husband, would, and she starts helping people, that whole scene of her telling Jamie Lee Curtis, "You are not unlovable."
Yeah.
Oh, dude,
chills
this
again.
movie had me crying so hard in the third act. Like, I was hearing things that I needed to hear without knowing I needed to hear it, basically.
That's a sign of a good movie.
I agree. I cried a lot during the third act because it still kept going.
Oh, whatever.
Much like this podcast, so we're going to move on to the 2023 Rewindies, in which we will give our awards for the following categories only from the list of nominations from this year. They are as follows: supporting actor, supporting actress, production design, costume design, makeup and hairstyling, music, visual effects, cinematography, editing, sound, actor, actress, writing, and director.
You did a fine job at reading those quickly.
Thank you. Practice many times. Yeah. Okay. And of course, Best Picture. Obviously, what you think the Best Picture is for the year. So let's start with supporting actor. I'll start with myself. We'll go to Lisa, and then we'll go to Jeff, and then we'll go to Palmer. Okay. So supporting actor, I give to Ke Huy Quan for Everything, Everywhere, All at Once for all the reasons Jeff said about a minute ago.
Nice.
Because they're rewindies, I gave it to Barry Keoghan, even though I actually agree more with the Key one. But just, pretending alternate universe.
Right on.
There we go. It fits. Oh, is it me? I'm sorry. Yes,
Ke
Huy Quan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yes.
Tom Hanks for Elvis.
Tom Hanks.
Nice.
All right. Supporting actress, I give to Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once, which truthfully was not in my mind until she won, and I can't undo that. It was like I put other people in there. I put Carrie Condon, whatever, and I just couldn't do it. I was like, no, it's her. She actually was the best supporting. It was just like I just didn't know it was her, and that to me is always like the sign of falling into a character. So yeah.
I cheered, even though she wasn't my first pick. I cheered real hard when she won, by the way.
Yeah.
I was like, it was just it's been a long time in the industry, and she finally won. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I picked Jess Buckley.
Oh, nice.
Women Talking. I thought that was a very compelling character type that doesn't always get a voice and is often judged. And I feel like the way that women come to the conclusion the movie is really good, but her portrayal was like really what sold it for me.
Yeah, she's one of my favorite actors, period, today.
Yeah, I'm really liking her, man.
Yeah, every time I see her in a movie like The Lost Daughter and all that stuff, it's just incredible. I went with another Women Talking performance. I went with Claire Foy.
Oh, I love Claire Foy so much.
Foy, yeah.
She's just incredible in that movie.
She's phenomenal.
I had a hard time deciding if who was the supporting of that group, and who was the lead, because they were.
I think
it was a true
for the
ensemble.
Oscars, they submitted Rooney Mara for the lead. I think that's what they did.
I see.
I could see that. You see her the most.
Yeah.
Her character really.
But even then, it's really up to you to decide. Because I had commented that I don't think Brendan Gleeson shouldn't have been in the supporting category.
Yeah, he's a lead.
I feel like he's
I
a
would have considered him lead too.
Yeah. But I went with Lisa and Jessie Buckley.
Nice.
Very good.
High-fiving you.
Production design, I gave to All Quiet on the Western Front, which I do believe really is really, really well done. I know we joked, I think, in our own thread, it's just a field, but it has to be,
and it's quiet.
The field, it has to be.
It's
just a quiet Western Front.
It has to be the Western Front, to always keep it muddy and to look like that all the time. It's the outside world. How hard it is to control the weather conditions of the outside world, and it was just really well done.
When you see it, it has to scream West.
That's right. It does too. You can hear it go.
I don't know if mine's right, but I mean, because I guess it's really more effects. But I picked Avatar, even though I haven't seen.
Your choice is always right, Lisa.
No.
Thank you.
I mean, they have to design it. I don't see why that doesn't count.
Yeah, that's what. So I was like, I'm going to be honest. Even if I'm not interested, it visually, I would think would win.
The production design, practically speaking, is just a big tank, and that is very impressive. I'm not going to lie, because no other movie had ever done that.
There you go.
No other movie had ever done that.
Titanic.
I think it's even bigger for Avatar 2, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, my pick is Elvis. I just thought the throwback sets were so believable, and quite literally felt like I was transplanted into another time. It was just really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was going to pick Elvis until that, but
see, I told you we were going to align on some. I told you, man.
I'm sticking with Elvis. So that's one. I said 5, so that's one.
Okay. Next up is costume design, in which I picked Elvis.
I picked Elvis too.
Wow. This is where I went with my first of a few, my second, Everything Everywhere All at Once, just because the costumes were so, especially for Joy's character, Jobu, or Chewbacca, or whatever the other names that Evelyn calls her. They were just so intricate, like, and so freaking weird and out there. So I really admired the costumes.
Elvis.
Just does not accept
the look of the comeback special outfit and how like exact that was.
What? I'm sorry. What won for this again? I can't even remember.
Costumes was
it was Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. That's right.
Yeah.
Which I understand that too.
I get that actually. Yeah.
It was the same costume
from those anyway.
I disagree. I thought the style was a little bit more elevated this time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I agree.
Makeup and hairstyling. I was going to give it to All Quiet on the Western Front, but I think I'm actually going with Elvis. It just feels better, so I'm going with Elvis.
I picked All Quiet on the Western Front.
Nice. I went with Elvis as well.
I went with Avatar: The Way of Water. No. Elvis.
That was good. That's two, man. That's two.
The dots were makeup.
I know. Best music. I'm going with. I wrote both my choices, and now I have to choose. I'm going with All Quiet on the Western Front. I think I made a better argument for it while we talked about it. So
yeah.
I picked Elvis.
I love the score that Hildur Gudnadottir did for Women Talking.
It was very understated, but it served the movie.
It's got a great hook and melody. Like I can sing it if I want to.
Bom.
No, not that.
Oh,
Women Talking.
It was really out of place in Women Talking. It was weird. I'm gonna go with Lisa on Elvis, primarily because we don't separate best score and best song.
True.
And I feel like
Elvis,
the Academy really did a disservice this year. I think Doja Cat should have gotten nominated for Hound Dog, and I don't like their whole thing of it was slightly too much of the hook was Hound Dog, even though the rest of the song was original.
I preferred Casey Musgrave's version of I Can't Help Falling in Love with You.
Yeah, but that was a completely I'm just saying, I can understand why that wasn't nominated.
Yeah.
But Hound Dog, which I think is still mostly original, except for the hook, should have been nominated.
I like that song a lot.
Yeah. But so Elvis, because I think there's enough originality to it.
All right. Visual effects, I'm going to give to Avatar: The Way of Water, even though I haven't seen it because it's fairly obvious.
Same.
Yeah, yes. And I have seen it. And yes, this is absolutely the correct choice.
I almost went with Women Talking, but Avatar.
Good choice. Good last minute
switch. They didn't actually film it in a barn. It was all CG.
Yeah.
Women Talking also there for stunt when they jumped out the top of the barn.
That scared the crap out of me.
Yes.
I was like, no. Oh. And then she's like, just kidding. I'm like, is that funny right now?
So you were really in the bar with them.
To be fair, it was. But
cinematography, I'm giving to All Quiet on the Western Front.
Same
for Lisa.
Oh, no, Top Gun Maverick. Come on, get out of here, bro. Get out of here. They shot it for real.
Yeah, I know.
Real planes.
I know. I actually thought that. I actually thought that was what was going to win, for the Oscars. I thought it was.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and then it didn't even get nominated, and I was like, okay.
The way I thought about it afterwards, which informed my decision here, is that while that is impressive that they shot it for real and whatever else, when they're not in the planes, it is par for the course cinematography.
I disagree. Actually, I thought there were some great, I don't know, there were some great shots with silhouettes and lighting, and I don't know, there were some other shots that really impressed me.
Par for the course is good. Par is great. But there's nothing wrong with Par. But I wasn't wowed by it when they weren't in the jets, and so that's where I went with that. And you went with Top Gun, so Palmer.
Avatar.
Just
everything about the look of that movie is just so top notch.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Editing, I'm going for Top Gun Maverick for the reasons that probably Jeff gave for cinematography.
I did Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I did Everything Ever All at Once too. I think editing is kind of like a different character in the movie. Like it feeds into a lot of bits, and there's like shots that are just so impressive editing wise that I'm like, how the hell did they do that? Do
you know that the editors on the movie didn't go to film school? They learned how to edit by YouTube.
Oh my gosh!
And there were 5 of them, and they all won an Oscar.
Oh, that's it. The cinephiles will turn against the movie editing now.
Mm-hmm. Wild. Palmer, what's your choice?
I'm going with Elvis because for a Baz Luhrmann movie, if his editing's not on point, that movie can go off. His movies can go off the rails. Mm-hmm. So,
all right. Best sound, I'm giving to Top Gun Maverick.
I did Elvis.
Palmer, we better sync up on this one, man. Avatar: The Way of Water.
Yeah.
See,
yeah. Avatar.
Because we were already talking about it in the chat, and that's kind of what made me go, you know what? Avatar, I think, is the best sound. Like, yeah, it's just they had to kind of invent a lot out of nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unlike the ones that actually won it.
Right.
Best actor, I'm giving to Austin Butler for Elvis.
I gave it to Paul Dano because I like Paul Dano.
Right on.
I'm not going to pretend to be unbiased.
He's so great.
Paul Dano, if you're listening.
I'm not like those creeps on the internet that are like, he's hot, I love him. Like, that's weird. Y'all are weird, but he's a phenomenal actor.
So you're saying he's ugly?
No. Far from it.
Okay.
But I'm just saying I don't base awards off thirstiness.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I feel like that's
where you
weird.
and Palmer are.
Well, I do. That's why I went with Austin Butler for Elvis.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, good choice.
No, but really, he's just, the movie doesn't work, period, without an Elvis that is Elvis. And he's just amazing. He just.
Do y'all find him jarring in interviews, though?
He's clear. Yeah, he's putting on something for them for sure, an affectation.
Well, I always feel.
I don't think he
comes across kind of like
hokey,
like a himbo.
Yeah,
a little bit. There's
you talking about
it.
You talking about the his accent still? Because I actually saw an interview
just in general.
I did see an
his answers to questions.
He seems
kind
of. He sounds like, after a football game when you ask somebody like, what are you going to do next? How did you win? And they're like, we played a really good game. We tried real hard. And you're like,
we scored more points than them.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I thought you were going to say something profound. Like,
I think that.
But he's a great actor.
I feel like the expectation that they have to say something profound is maybe what's getting you. Like, I don't know. They're just people. Sure. Like, I don't know.
By the way, Lisa, he's in Dune Part 2 as the prince. I'm so excited.
Very excited.
I'm very excited about
him and
that.
Florence Pugh gotta
I heard.
it.
Yeah, Palmer's the only person on the planet
if that movie gets nominated,
it will.
It's gonna win everything.
It's gonna win. Yeah. If I have anything to say about it, and I don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
It's gonna win a lot of rewindies that year. Damn it!
To be able to sweep the rewindies.
Yeah. Best actor. No, Palmer. You do actor.
Austin Butler.
Okay. Best actress. I'm gonna give to Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Which her. Whereas Cate Blanchett's Lydia Tarr has absolutely stuck with me and will continually live in my head. Michelle Yeoh's keeps sneaking up on me, and even though I didn't love the movie, these 3 performances keep coming back into my mind, and I think that's very important.
I picked Cate Blanchett.
Right.
Yep. It's funny, you went with my darling, and I'm going with Tim's, Cate Blanchett, Tar. Yeah,
I love her.
She's just unbelievable.
Palmer?
I'm going with Rooney Mara.
Nice. That's out of the box, Palmer. Strikes again. I love it.
Best writing, I'm giving to the Banshees of Inisherin.
I did EEAAO.
AIOU.
AIOU.
Yeah.
I went with Tar.
Nice. Good choice.
That script is brilliant. Dialogue and everything.
I went with Women Talking.
Tar King.
That Best director, I'm giving to Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans.
I did too, even though I didn't even see it. I was just like, it's Steven Spielberg.
Spielberg bias.
What happened? What happened to not giving it to someone just from thirsting, Lisa?
Oh yeah, you know how I feel about Steven Spielberg.
He's a very
just
pretty man.
Over here thirsting.
And do you know what he called Everything Everywhere All at Once? Brilliant genius work. I'm just saying, just throwing it out there.
Oh, all right. I'm changing my best director then.
You should actually see his reaction when they won. Is his hands in the air going, "Yay!"
Yeah.
Like that's
He's like, I got a million of these. Who cares?
Yeah, it's true.
He was like, I learned a lot from watching that movie, and I was like, what?
He doesn't. I know.
Yeah.
You're
He's
right.
like, I guess we can anticipate more like sex toys in Spielberg movies, is what I gathered from what he said about it.
That was my takeaway.
Yeah. That's
Anyway,
he's like, I love that part. That's my favorite part.
My director choice was actually Joseph Kosinski, Top Gun Maverick. I felt he had a huge mountain to climb with this movie, and just completely nailed it. Like knocked it out of the park. It was just such an overwhelming, daunting task.
Was that an ironic joke because Tom Cruise is short?
Yes.
Yes.
That's why Lisa chose him for best
How
documentary.
short is Tom Cruise? Didn't we determine he's not that short?
No, he's like a regular human height. Yeah.
Like 5'9" or something.
Yeah.
No, you're taller.
5'7" or 5'8"?
I don't know. I'll look it up.
I guess that's short.
I'm going to look it up before we do Best Picture. The anticipation. Tom Cruise.
Since I'm 5'1", everything is tall to me. So
Everything, everywhere, all at once is taller than Lisa.
He's 5'7". That's not bad.
No, that's
I
short.
guess that is kind of small.
I'm taller than Tom Cruise by an inch.
Everyone is.
Than him.
Yeah. That is.
I'd be like, hey Tom, love your
But
movies.
can you
Find a
jump
song.
out of a plane? No.
No.
That's what he's compensating
I didn't,
for.
I didn't say I was better than Tom
those
Cruise.
few
I
inches
said
that
I'm
makes you
taller
feel
than
normal
Tom
height.
Cruise.
I could jump out of a plane. I'm smart enough not to.
There you go. That's true. There's
There
that.
you go.
All right. So
Somebody tell Tom that, please.
down
Seriously.
to the money. The Best Picture winner for this year for me, I'm giving it to Tar. It was my favorite movie of the year, so I'm doing Tar.
I did not pick one. So I'm gonna say
Which one was your favorite?
My favorite movie of the year was No.
Batman.
It was not on here, so I can't say that. But out of this list, man, come back to me. You go, Jeff.
Okay. I'm going to go with Triangle of Sad. No, I'm not going to do that. Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay.
Just to spite you guys.
It's your movie.
But yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I love that movie to pieces. So I just can't not, basically.
And Palmer, what was your Best Picture?
Women Talking.
Women Talking. And Lisa,
What?
back to you.
Not
Yeah,
Avatar? All right.
No,
I think
again,
I'm gonna
I
go-
love Avatar, but I don't think it should win Best Picture.
It means the story wasn't there for
Gotcha.
him. It's good.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna do a huge flip and say Everything All at Once. I mean, from this list, it was like overall the best movie that I saw.
Was it?
Comparatively, yes, I love Tar, but I don't know that I would call it the best overall movie I saw from this list.
I don't know. The way that I see it is that none of these movies are getting real awards from us anyway, so whatever.
I might
actually,
change my mind tomorrow.
I mail them out.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, let's plug our stuff. Academy Rewind, Facebook, Gmail, Twitter. We don't actually have any of those things, just Twitter and Gmail. We don't check it.
Yep.
And so you can rate and review us on iTunes and find us all the places podcasts can be found. Thought Bubble Audio to find all of the Thought Bubble Audio shows. Patreon.com/Thought Audio to support all Thought Bubble Audio podcasts. Lisa, where can the people find you?
You can find me at Twitter at ILTM Podcast, and I'm on Instagram at I Love That Movie Podcast. And anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can just search I Love That Movie.
Jeff.
Hi. What? No, I'm kidding. I'm on Twitter. Current_cinema is the new. I've recently changed my handle to that because I just started a movie podcast. I've been dying to do one, and it's called Current Cinema. So go check that out. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts.
Fantastic.
And watch it on YouTube. It is a video podcast.
Oh, nice. Good.
Yeah, right. I'm seeing you right now. I'm just going to listen. Thank you.
Well played. And that's, you know what? There's a lot of nudity in it too. So I I'm just warning everybody.
And on that note,
that's
I
on
do
the
believe
Patreon.
the group from RRR is coming to take us off the stage. They're playing us off. Bye.
Bye.